In 1939, in the distant and mysterious Bolivia, an extraordinary event occurred. An expedition arrived that truly stood out for its uniqueness and significance. It was led by the renowned German archaeologist and writer Edmund Kiss, whose name was associated with the study of ancient monuments and legends. This journey was more than just a simple scientific field expedition. It was imbued with deep meaning and special status. With the support of high-ranking Nazi official Heinrich Himmler, whose well-known obsession with occultism and mystical teachings was prominent at the time, the event took on a particular connotation. Himmler, as the founder and leader of the occult society ANRB, established this organization in 1931 to search for, study, and implement the heritage of ancient civilizations. The society considered itself the bearer of knowledge about the powerful Aryan race, an entity that, in their belief, once existed and left behind not only myths and legends but also tangible traces in the form of architectural monuments, mysterious artifacts, and technologies surpassing modern achievements. Members of ANRB believed that these traces could be found in many parts of the world, and their goal was to reconstruct the image of the ancient Aryans, link them to modern German peoples, and thus confirm the theory of their exceptional nature and ancient role in human history. As part of these searches and investigations, numerous expeditions were organized to ancient and little-known monuments around the world, including the mysterious ruins at Tiahuanaco, located near the high-altitude Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. Although these explorations were less popular compared to others widely covered by science and the media, the Tiahuanaco expedition was nonetheless driven by the same ideological motives as other such missions. Himmler and his supporters hoped not only to discover new architectural and cultural horizons but also to reinforce their version of the origin of the Aryans, claiming that their ancestors lived here long before known civilizations and that this ancient culture left behind magnificent monuments, architectural masterpieces, and keys to lost technologies. The ruins discovered at Tiahuanaco, situated in the vicinity of the famous lake, appeared to be the very place capable of confirming their theories. One of the main unique features of this complex was its scale and extraordinary precision in the processing of stone structures. Gigantic blocks, some weighing up to 130 tons, were used to construct temples, gates, and massive monolithic sculptures, astonishing with their size and technological sophistication. These stone structures, despite their grandeur and solidity, were crafted with such precision that the joints between individual blocks seemed almost invisible, something that could not be explained by the use of simple stone tools. For example, the Pumapunku complex in Tiahuanaco includes massive blocks of andesite and red sandstone, decorated with intricate carvings, cuts, and perfectly fitted seams. This level of accuracy in fitting the elements together is breathtaking and raises not only questions but also a deeper curiosity. One of the most mysterious features is the complete absence of tool marks or traces of working on the stone masonry. Archaeologists suggest that the civilization responsible for these constructions may have used primitive stone implements and wooden sleds to transport the massive blocks. However, the degree of precision in carving and polishing the stones, achieved through scraping and grinding, seems unattainable with the technologies available at that time and with those tools. The facing stones are perfectly aligned, so much so that even the strongest and roughest tools would not have been able to force a needle into the joint. This indicates that the builders likely possessed advanced knowledge and skills unavailable to their contemporaries. Some stones in Pumapunku have drilled holes and complex corner cuttings resembling engineering solutions used today in modern construction. All this suggests that these ancient artisans had knowledge and technologies far beyond our understanding and vanished into a mysterious and secretive era. Evidence of their technical achievements and refined understanding of construction continually reinforces the idea that the Tiahuanaco civilization, which left such astonishing monuments, possessed profound knowledge in astronomy. The placement of temples and monuments in accordance with astronomical phenomena confirms that their creators, without a doubt, understood the patterns of star and planet movements, knowledge clearly and deliberately reflected in the architecture of this complex. Kalasaya is truly a unique architectural monument, an exquisite structure in the open space, where colossal stone columns create the impression of a magnificent temple. Its construction was carried out with remarkable precision and meticulousness, mirroring the most important astronomical events related to the sun's movement and seasonal changes. Especially during the winter solstice days, when the sun rises on the horizon between specially positioned columns, creating an effect as if the sun's rays pass through them, indicating skillful orientation of this complex relative to celestial bodies. Such an accurate sighting is not merely a coincidence but the result of profound knowledge of stellar movement possessed by its builders. These astronomical observations likely had important practical significance. They helped determine the timing of sowing and harvesting work throughout the year, which indicates a high level of knowledge of natural cycles and the development of mathematics among the builders of this site. It is not surprising that such precise alignment could suggest a much earlier period of construction. Some scholars, studying astronomical data and historical prerequisites, hypothesize that the construction of Kalasaya may have taken place several thousand years BCE. In particular, there are suggestions that it is related to the observation of solar activity cycles, and some researchers even tend to believe that its erection dates back to around 15,000 years ago. However, it should be noted that modern astronomical measurements, based on satellite data and computer processing, allow for a more accurate determination of the age of such monuments. According to recent estimates, their construction dates to approximately 12,000 years ago. Nevertheless, even this more modest figure makes Kalasaya, or rather Tianaka, one of the oldest known cities on Earth. Despite debates and discussions among scientists, this hypothesis has led many to suggest that such structures could have been created by members of a long-extinct civilization endowed with special knowledge in engineering, astronomy, and mathematics, which has long been forgotten. If this is true, our understanding of the history of cultural development in the Americas needs a radical revision, as we might be looking at ruins of a very ancient and mysterious civilization that existed long before the known archaeological cultures. Against this background, there is also a legend stating that the city of Tianaka was destroyed by a great flood. This legend forms the basis of folklore among the indigenous peoples, who recount a terrible event that wiped out their settlement. Such myths about global or large-scale floods are not uncommon in ancient cultures worldwide. They can be found in the myths of Mesopotamian civilizations, in ancient Indian legends, as well as in the traditions of American peoples. Many scholars suggest that these legends reflect real natural disasters associated with the end of the last ice age, which occurred approximately 12,000 years ago. During this time, as glaciers melted, dramatic changes in sea levels took place, leading to flooding of coastal areas and the formation of new shoreline. Geological studies conducted around Lake Titicaca greatly support this view. Analyses of sediments and the study of ancient layers in this region suggest that water levels in this body of water fluctuated greatly over different periods, which could have resulted in partial flooding of ancient settlements, including the city of Tianaka. Part 4 of 63. Archaeology continues to investigate this unique site. However, the presence of complex engineering structures, precise astronomical alignments, and possible links to legendary myths of ancient floods inspire believers in alternative theories to trust in its mysterious origins. In the early 20th century, some historical and archaeological circles, particularly representatives of Nazi Germany, used these ancient clues and archaeological findings to support their ideological concepts. Among them, Edmund Kiss is especially well known. He intended to utilize these discoveries for his own purposes. He regarded Tianaka as evidence of a long-lost Aryan civilization that, in his view, once existed across the entire planet. Before his expedition to Tianaka, Kiss had already published works expressing the opinion that a truly advanced ancient culture could have emerged long before the invention of writing and served as the foundation for subsequent societies. After visiting this enigmatic complex a few years ago, his interest only deepened. He hypothesized that the ruins represented the remnants of a vanished supercivilization, possibly connected to the legendary Atlantis, which he believed had Aryan origins. According to his theories, this was an advanced society that migrated to South America in ancient times, long before the rise of the Inca Empire. It built cities here and transmitted its knowledge to primitive peoples. Tianaka had attracted the attention of Western scholars and researchers as early as 549 AD when a group of Spanish conquistadors stumbled upon the ruins of these mysterious structures in the highland regions. Impressed by the granite giant gates, numerous monoliths, and extensive earthworks, the early explorers were amazed. Equally captivating were the skillful and intricate carved ornaments hiding mysterious glyphs and symbols, which appeared to attest to the high culture of ancient peoples. When local inhabitants learned about the discovered monuments and inquired about the origin of these ruins, they said that they belonged to distant eras and that the civilizations that created them had been destroyed by a great flood coinciding with legendary cataclysms. The antiquity of this site and its mysterious origins made Tianaka one of the most enigmatic and least studied archaeological discoveries. By the 20th century, European naturalists eagerly made their way to the ruins, proposing various hypotheses about the civilization that could have built these magnificent structures. Nonetheless, almost all of them agreed on one point: they rejected the possibility that the ancestors of the Aymara people, who inhabit the areas around Lake Titicaca, could have left such impressive architectural monuments. But if we suppose that Tayanka was not built by the local people, then the question arises, who, in fact, managed to create this unique and mysterious place? When the renowned researcher Kiss first visited Tiahuanaco in the 1920s, he encountered a territory that seemed isolated and mysterious, as if surrounded by an unseen space. This factor only reinforced his conviction that these were not merely ancient ruins, but traces of a highly developed civilization that had left behind these architectural marvels. Further supporting his hypotheses, Kiss proposed the idea that Tiahuanaco was a product of Northern Aryan activity, built over 1 million years ago. However, such an age estimate directly conflicted with both geological and archaeological evidence indicating a more modest time frame. Kiss's investigations gradually blurred the boundaries between strict science and mysticism, raising more and more questions and doubts among experts. Based on his interpretations of architectural forms and astronomical alignments of the structures, he suggested that the creators of Tiahuanaco possessed technologies far superior to modern understanding. For instance, he believed that the construction and engineering methods used in the structures were beyond the capabilities of ordinary peoples living at the time. In his view, this pointed to an ancient hypertechnology, a network of unknown energy sources, as well as highly advanced engineering solutions likely lost over time. Kiss speculated that these ancient Aryans perhaps possessed knowledge and capabilities surpassing known technologies. Although Edmund Kiss's hypothesis that the civilization responsible for Tiahuanaco could be a successor to the legendary Atlantis initially seems rather strange, it was not unique among his contemporaries. For many years, the inhabitants of Bolivia also believed their origins traced back to a legendary land, and their views in this regard aligned with Kiss's ideas. The connection to the mythical Atlantis provided Bolivian aristocracy, with European roots, a noble foundation for their origins, creating an image of an ancient elite possessing mysterious knowledge. This legend, in turn, attracted the attention of Nazi ideologists, many of whom sought justification and confirmation of their concept of white racial superiority. The link to a mysterious and mythic past served as a kind of symbol of elitism, forming the basis for myths about noble origins and higher knowledge. Although figures like Edmund Kiss and Nazi officials such as Himmler were often associated with the Nazis' interest in Tiahuanaco, their ideas and theories often stemmed from earlier and more advanced concepts, particularly among Bolivian and Austrian scholars, including figures like Belisario, Diaz Romero, and archaeologist Arthur Poznansky. Their interpretations, combined with German ethnic nationalism and occultism, became the fuel that laid the groundwork for the creation of Nazi ideology, steeped in myths and legends about antiquity. A pseudoscientific scenario was even devised in preparation for an expedition to these mysterious ruins. In the 1930s, Hungarian archaeologist Wendel Benit conducted a series of excavations and studies, during which, alongside radiocarbon dating, he established that the Tiankara civilization appeared as early as the 30th century BC and reached its peak between the 6th and 8th centuries AD. Modern scholars generally agree that the creators of these structures were ancestors of the Aymara people, who inhabited the region around Lake Titicaca at that time. This fact confirms their historical authenticity and significance for studying the origins of ancient cultures. In the early 20th century, many researchers and scientists in Bolivia viewed with suspicion and some distrust the idea that the majestic ancient city of Tiankara could have been built by indigenous cultures of the Andes. Members of the elite, especially those from European circles, often regarded such ideas as incredible, doubting that local peoples possessed the sufficient technological development and organizational skills to construct large-scale monuments. The knowledge environment of that time was filled with various theories often supported more by conjecture than scientific evidence, and these perspectives shaped the understanding of many historical mysteries. One prominent figure among this elite was a person named Belisario Diaz Romero. Born in 1870 in a wealthy family in the city of La Paz, he displayed extraordinary intellectual abilities from a young age and studied multiple disciplines: medicine, history, archaeology. As an erudite and respected physician, he was also part of the circle of educators, scientists, and researchers, making him a prominent and influential figure. His views were based on the polygenetic theory of race origin, an idea widespread during his youth, suggesting that races have their own distinct origins and development. This concept allowed him to formulate bold hypotheses about historical events, linking them to racial and cultural connections. Thus, Diaz-Romera proposed that the city of Tiancara was not built by the ancestors of the Andean people, but by an earlier, vanished race, Homo Atlanticus, which he believed descended from the legendary Atlantis. He asserted that it was representatives of this superior race of white people who colonized the highlands of Bolivia, firmly associating them with the mysterious monuments and architectural relics of Tiancara. In his theories, he indicated that these ancient civilizations were the architects of such grand structures, surpassing in scale and complexity. In his interpretation, the indigenous peoples of Aymara and Quechua living in present-day Bolivia also descended from this extinct race, Homo Atlanticus. However, despite his confidence, he depicted these local peoples as rough, barbaric representatives of Asian origin, who, in his view, appeared in the region much later and occupied Tiahuanaco's territory after the disappearance of the Aryan peoples who previously inhabited these lands. Although Diaz-Romera's historical ideas were not subjected to rigorous scientific critique and were essentially pseudoscientific, they nevertheless gained widespread popularity among Bolivia's elite, especially among those who sought to justify and reinforce a racial and socially hierarchical view of the indigenous population's place. His attempts to explain Tiahuanaco's greatness through mythical hypotheses also served as a means to justify unacceptable racial and cultural stratifications of modern times, strengthening among the upper classes the belief in racial and cultural superiority, which they believed explained the essence of the region's historical development. A particular figure in this lineup was Arthur Poznański, an Austrian immigrant who arrived in Bolivia in the early 20th century, a man whose obsession with the idea of Tiahuanaco's ancient building power utterly consumed him. He dedicated several years to this ancient city, over about 10 years spent in Bolivia, gathering information, studying ruins, analyzing artifacts, and publishing numerous works written in various languages. Poznański's theories combined elements of speculative archaeology and mythological legends about Atlantis, creating an image of Tiahuanaco as a remnant of a vanished civilization that existed long before the Andean cultures, dating back to deep antiquity. He claimed that this city was built by aliens or an ancient race whose development was tragically interrupted, according to his version, a civilization surpassing in level of development and technological achievements those of the Andes. In his research, Poznański paid special attention to the mystical aspects and astronomical alignments of Tiahuanaco's structures, making his theories particularly dramatic and richly symbolic. His views gained popularity and extended beyond his personal circle. They resonated in Asia and Europe, where influential minds embraced them, such as the renowned German archaeologist Edmund Kies. Under the influence of Poznański's work, Kies developed his own theory about the origins of great ancient civilizations, which included controversial ideas about the racial superiority of Aryan peoples. Edmund Kies, one of the prominent archaeologists of that time, suggested that Tiahuanaco was not just a city but a symbol of some legendary people, a Nordic civilization that survived a catastrophe. According to his hypotheses, as a result of a global catastrophe involving a collision between the Moon and the Earth, a glacial period ensued on the planet. The entire world was covered in ice, and the great eclipse of civilizations at that time was destructive to all known cultures. He proposed that in their search for refuge and a new homeland, survivors of these northern peoples found shelter in the high mountain regions of the Andes, where they founded the city of Tiahuanaco, an almost living testament to their survival and technological superiority. The archaeologist carefully studied the remains of the city, analyzing the layout of the ruins and the skulls found in the repositories of the National Museum of Bolivia, comparing them with the presumed Norse origins. Ultimately, he reached a convincing conclusion that Tiahuanaco was a city built specifically by representatives of Scandinavian or Nordic civilization, who had remained in these remote corners after the global disaster. His ideas, despite skepticism and criticism from the scientific community, gained considerable popularity and influenced theories about ancient migrations and legends of lost civilizations. Later, in Germany, he emphasized that the art and architecture of this place could not have come from India, but were most likely created by Scandinavian artisans who brought their unique civilization to the Indian highlands. Kies's research achieved a certain success in Germany, and his theories resonated among Nazi officials. In the 1920s, Edmund Kies and his team continued studying the ancient monuments of Tiahuanaco, with particular focus on searching for Aryan heritage in the most remote parts of the world. They were especially interested in the Sun Gate, one of the most famous and mysterious monuments of this ancient city. The gates were decorated with fine and skillful carvings, and their central figure was often perceived as an image of a creator deity associated with Viracocha, which is part of the region's ancient beliefs. However, Kiss insisted that these images belonged to ancient Aryan iconography, not Indian or any other local tradition. He believed that the central figure symbolized an Aryan god-king or high priest of a vanished civilization, and that these images did not represent local deities at all. The complex, perforated patterns of the gates were interpreted by Nazis according to their own perspective. They believed these symbols represented encoded signs containing lost knowledge related to Aryan heritage, as well as ancient wisdom transmitted through the ages. In his 1931 book, The Glass Sea, Edmund Kiss proposed a hypothetical reconstruction of Tiahuanaco, which, in his view, could unveil the secrets of this mysterious city. His theories went beyond the boundaries of official archaeology, challenging established views and widely accepted hypotheses. Karl Kish, who was called the Aryan Prophet, was not only a supporter of racial and nationalist ideas shared by the Nazi regime but also engaged in cosmological questions. In his works, he proposed complex and often controversial theories about the moon, its role, and its connection to ancient civilizations, considering it a crucial factor in the fate of humanity. These ideas, developed by him in later works, became part of a broader pseudoscientific concept that combined notions of mysticism, history, and celestial bodies. A particularly prominent place in his views was occupied by the idea of the moon as a cosmic power center influencing the cycles of civilization and destruction. Kish claimed that the moon held the key role in global cataclysms and the demise of ancient civilizations such as Atlantis, which, in his opinion, was founded by Aryan ancestors and later destroyed under the influence of lunar cycles. He believed that in ancient times, there were 3 moons, each exerting its influence on human destiny, and that each generation of people was under the impact of a corresponding lunar phase. These ideas echoed his views on the lost Aryan civilization and its period of flourishing and decline, which he believed were closely connected to cosmic and terrestrial cataclysms. For Kish, these cycles of destruction became an important component of the divine order of the universe. He regarded the Aryan peoples as chosen bearers of ancient knowledge, who managed to survive due to their special destiny and capacity to endure catastrophes. In his concept, these peoples were not merely victims of cosmic forces but preserved invaluable knowledge passed down through generations and survived in conditions of global upheaval related to the rhythms and influences of the lunar cycles. Within this framework, the supposed destruction of the legendary Atlantis was linked to an even more ancient event, the disintegration of the moon, which, according to Kish, had been spoken of since ancient times. He believed that this catastrophe led to large-scale floods, powerful earthquakes, and abrupt climate changes that completely destroyed the Atlantis civilization of that era. He was convinced that accounts of this event had been preserved in ancient cultures and legends of other peoples. He particularly emphasized the Aryan tradition, believing that it was the descendants of the Aryans who managed to inherit and preserve these ancient truths thanks to their resilience and special chosen status. In his view, the Aryans appeared as a people endowed with unique wisdom, which they managed to safeguard amidst the great global catastrophes faced by the planet. Kish's ideas were based on the principle that this knowledge was transmitted through inheritance and kept secret until the time came to rediscover and rebuild civilization. He believed that the role of the Aryans was to preserve this sacred wisdom and to bring about a new era after destructive upheavals. An important aspect of his teachings was also the conviction of the racial superiority of the Aryans, who were considered a particularly resilient and chosen people. He saw them as guardians of ancient knowledge, having survived numerous tragedies and catastrophes, and entrusted them with a special mission to revive lost civilizations. Edmund Kiss, developing his theories, relied not only on his own convictions but also on the works of the Austrian engineer Gans Horbiger, who lived in the early 20th century. This scientist proposed the hypothesis of the so-called world ice, a large-scale global glaciation that, in his view, played a decisive role in the formation of the universe and the development of cosmos overall. According to Horbiger's theory, icy masses played a key role in cosmic processes. Planets and satellites interacted through cataclysms related to the movement and growth of ice masses. In his understanding, these cosmic disasters associated with the icy state significantly influenced the development of human civilizations, creating conditions for the rise and fall of different eras in Earth's history. Although Horbiger's theory remained without rigorous scientific confirmation and many considered it pseudoscientific, it gained popularity within certain circles. Specifically, among members of the Himmler-led organization known as Ahnenerbe, the ideas of the Austrian engineer found supporters. German nationalist and mystical groups perceived the hypothesis of the world ice as an alternative to the accepted scientific cosmology, which they frequently criticized as essentially Jewish. In their view, official science concealed the secrets of ancient knowledge, and the theory of the world ice could serve as a key to unlocking the true history of the universe and human origins. Support from Himmler and the SS leadership enabled researchers of the Ahnenerbe, including Kiss, to organize a whole series of expeditions across Europe and even into distant corners of Asia. Their goal was to prove and confirm the hypothesis of global glaciation, essentially, to find evidence that the planet had experienced powerful glacial catastrophes in ancient epochs. These expeditions were called Search for Fragments of the Icy Moon, as their aim was to find tangible remnants of what, according to their theory, was once part of the ancient moon destroyed during the glaciation. One of the most mysterious and ambitious projects was the Journey of 1936. This expedition aimed to discover physical remnants of the supposed lunar body, which at that time was considered proof of Horbiger's theory. The group included SS members, scientists, and researchers fully committed to the ideas of Ahnenerbe. According to their plans, it was necessary to find geological, meteorite, or other samples capable of indicating the presence of traces of the ancient moon in Europe and neighboring regions. The main searches focused on areas that had previously attracted their attention: the Austrian Alps, the forested regions of Bavaria, and other remote parts of Central Europe. There, they examined unusual rock formations, stones, and geological layers, noting anomalies that differed from the typical features of the local terrain, hoping to find possible links to extraterrestrial and lunar origins. Particular attention was given to samples with high concentrations of elements such as iridium, which is considered an indicator of extraterrestrial origin in geology. Even small meteorite deposits and unusual rock layers were regarded as potential evidence that these locations had witnessed a massive cosmic event or contained remnants of shattered lunar material. They meticulously recorded and documented all unusual findings, hoping that these materials would confirm their hypothesis about a connection between Earth and an ancient cosmic structure. However, despite all efforts and extensive searches, the expedition of 2036 yielded no expected results. No convincing evidence of the existence or remnants of a destroyed moon was found. Ultimately, this scientific mission, shrouded in many secrets and cryptic symbols, ended in failure. The theory of Horbiger regarding the role of ice masses in the formation of the cosmos and the development of Earth could not be confirmed, and the moon remained for the participants of this expedition an enigmatic and unresolved mystery. Researchers who attempted to study the unusual samples, brightly characterized rock formations, meteorites, and geological anomalies, concluded that most of them either had a local origin or lacked the unique properties and exceptional characteristics that could convincingly differentiate them from ordinary fragments of a shattered lunar body. In the absence of a rigorous scientific methodology used by experienced geologists and specialists to objectively evaluate such finds, the research teams from Ahnenerbe were unable to confirm their hypotheses, and gradually, the search for lunar remnants was frozen and discontinued. Nevertheless, inspired by the ideas and theories of Horbiger, known for his unconventional views, Kess developed his own concepts regarding the moon. He saw it not as a singular, stable celestial body, but as a reflected multitude, diverse in its manifestations and forms. Edmund Kiss was captivated by the idea of multiple moons orbiting Earth over the millennia. He believed that these moons sometimes collided with the Earth or disintegrated, causing massive catastrophes in geological history, which in turn led to the destruction of ancient civilizations and cultures. According to this theory, the modern moon is merely the last of many satellites, each of which left its mark on human history and development. Edmund Kiss also participated in several other expeditions, one of which took place in Tanganyika, now known as Tanzania, where he was searching for giant skeletons, and another in Libya in 1939, in search of the mythical city of Zerzura. Some believe that this place was an ancient dwelling of spirits or jinn, which is why it attracted his attention. The Nazis, in turn, were obsessed with the hope of discovering the remains of giants, as their belief in this possibility provided undeniable evidence of the greatness of the Aryan race. Especially if the remains matched descriptions preserved in ancient myths and texts about heroic or semi-divine figures. For an organization like the Ahnenerbe, such finds would have been extremely valuable, serving as confirmation of their theories about the origins of mankind and its role in world history. The Nazi organization, focused on exploring Germanic and Aryan heritage, attributed great importance to their archaeological efforts not so much to material discoveries, but to the mysterious and remote natural environment of the African continent. In colonial archives, there are occasional mentions of giant skeletons, and it was in this context that Kiss was sent to Tanganyika to specifically find such remains that could embellish their propaganda myths and legends. He and his team were tasked with investigating sparsely populated and remote areas of the region, hoping to discover unusual fossils or bones about which legends circulated. They sought evidence of ancient giants, aiming to confirm the hypothesis of the presence of Aryan peoples in Africa in ancient times and their supposed influence. He was inspired by local stories and traditions of the indigenous population, which spoke of tall creatures or semi-mythical heroes, debated by modern scholars but perceived as historical legends. Kiss interpreted these legends through the lens of racial and nationalist beliefs, believing that confirming the existence of giant bones would dispel the last doubts about his theory of the ancient dominance of the Aryan race. In his writings, he described in detail how local guides assured him of the presence of large bones, sometimes fossilized remains that, according to them, belonged to ancient giants. However, most of these findings later turned out to be forgeries, animal bones, or natural rock formations. Despite targeted searches and serious expeditions, human remains confidently attributed to giant skeletons have never been discovered. All efforts and hopes remained unconfirmed, and ultimately, none of the supposed artifacts met expectations, as most of the found samples turned out to be either the result of natural processes or misinterpretations. In his research activities, Kiss found no substantial evidence of the existence of Aryans in prehistoric times. Nevertheless, after returning, the Nazi press continued to insist on the high significance of the conducted expedition, often exaggerating its results and hinting at the possible discovery of traces of giants or ancient monsters, although nothing truly significant was found in reality. In the 1930s, on the eve of the Second World War, Kiss decided to join an expedition headed to the Libyan desert, aimed at solving the mystery of the lost city of Zerzura. This mythical settlement had captivated the imaginations of explorers and adventurers for centuries. It was described as an oasis in the heart of endless sands, filled with countless treasures and said to be inhabited by jinn and supernatural beings embodying Islamic folklore, arousing curiosity and attraction among many. Some sources mentioned that Zerzura was the abode of white people possessing hidden and secret knowledge passed down through generations. These ideas inspired Kiss and his colleagues from the organization Ananurb to believe that Zerzura might be an ancient Aryan outpost or a secret repository of wisdom linked to the supposed heritage of the ancient Aryans. It is known that Zerzura first attracted the attention of European researchers in the Middle Ages, thanks to Arabic chronicles and nomadic legends recounting legendary cities hidden deep within the desert. Early in the 20th century, European archaeologists renewed their interest in the Zerzura mystery, this time with greater persistence and curiosity, attempting to locate its lost ruins. However, the harsh desert conditions and its uncharted territories posed significant obstacles to previous expeditions, and despite enthusiasm and determination, searches remained unsuccessful. Nevertheless, fueled by myths and often racial ideology promoted by the regime at the time, the Nazis decided to allocate their own funds to attempt to find the mysterious city. Kiss was chosen to participate in this risky endeavor due to his interest in ancient civilizations and because he was inclined to interpret archaeological finds specifically through the lenses of Nazi ideological concepts. The expedition, which began in the late 1930s, faced numerous logistical difficulties, extreme desert conditions, scorching heat, constant shortages of water and resources. Nevertheless, based on the records of previous researchers, local Bedouin knowledge, and detailed regional maps, the team led by Kisa ventured deep into the desert in hopes of finding the legendary ruins. Their goal was not only to discover archaeological artifacts but also to find traces that could link Zerzura to ancient Aryan or Scandinavian mythology. Some participants, including adherents of mystical beliefs, thought that if Zerzura truly existed, there might be lost knowledge or objects with unusual, even magical power there. It was quite likely that among the findings, there would be artifacts with mysterious properties or technological knowledge that could be used in military applications in the future. During long and arduous searches, the team uncovered scattered ruins, ancient rock carvings depicting numerous scenes of life and hunting, as well as traces of long-extinct trade routes running through the desert. However, none of these discoveries led to the discovery of the mythical city of Zerzura. In different corners, faded geological formations and small petroglyphs depicting animals or humans expanded the archaeologists' understanding of the region but did not allow establishing a direct connection to the supposed Aryan heritage that Nazi ideologists so desperately sought to confirm. As a result, Kisa's expeditionary team was unable to find proof of Zerzura's existence or link it to ancient Aryan civilizations, which only emphasized the complexity and mystery of this legend, remaining one of the most unresolved pages in the history of the desert. Everything related to expeditions and searches for ancient civilizations is often shrouded in myths, legends, and endless mystery. Just like the expedition to Tanganyika, its main goals remained beyond reach, and Zerzura itself became a legend that existed only in oral stories and urban legends. Nevertheless, the Nazi regime continued to view this attempt as a significant, albeit incomplete, achievement, and propaganda materials increasingly hinted that exploratory expeditions into the Libyan desert were merely the first step on a long path to uncovering ancient secrets. They believed that somewhere in the depths of the endless sands, the legendary city still lay hidden, awaiting its time and ready to reveal its mysteries to those who could find it. Shortly afterward, as part of strategic planning, a new expedition was arranged, this time to Tiahuanaco, which we mentioned earlier. However, after Germany's invasion of Poland in September 1939, this mission was postponed indefinitely. That moment marked the beginning of a global confrontation, World War II, which changed the entire map and the fates of people across the planet. The desire to continue previous searches was held by a dedicated SS officer named Kish, who believed in his ideals. He was a worthy officer, fully dedicated to his country, and afterwards was sent to the front to support military actions. Subsequently, he commanded various military installations, demonstrating himself as a capable and decisive leader. But the fate of this man ended unfortunately. At the end of the war, in 1945, he was taken prisoner by Allied forces. Although his dream of an expedition to Tiahuanaco remained unfulfilled, the ideas put forward by Kiss did not disappear. He hypothesized that the city of Tiahuanaco was not just a local settlement but a true primal homeland of ancient peoples, alien in origin to the local land, ideas that continued to be actively promoted in Nazi propaganda. In certain publications, especially in Hitler Youth materials, his theories found support. Nevertheless, after the war, most of these ideas came under serious doubt and were criticized. Their entire false foundation, associated with false assumptions and unreal myths, was discredited. However, despite this, the myths about the city of Tiahuanaco and its supposedly ancient civilizations, which did not originate on familiar land, persisted. Society firmly believed that in the depths of the mysterious southern land lay great secrets worth uncovering. The Nazis' interest in occult teachings and esotericism is well documented in historical records. It can be seen as an important part of their broader ideological system, built on faith in ancient wisdom and powerful supernatural forces. Believing that this knowledge could be used to achieve their goals related to racial superiority and global dominance, the Nazis sought ways to open the doors to the unknown. Such a craving for hidden knowledge had deep roots. It arose not only from superstitions and occult beliefs characteristic of the regime but also drew inspiration from broader folk movements of that time. During those years, ideas glorifying ancient Germanic myths, magic, and mysticism became especially popular. Society widely shared memories of lost Aryan roots and legendary homelands that needed to be reclaimed to restore national greatness. After World War I, a mysterious group known as the Society of Tula emerged in Munich. It had a significant influence on the formation of early Nazi ideology and worldview. The name of this association derived from Ultrachuli, a mythical land mentioned in ancient Greek and Roman chronicles. It was described as the most remote northern point beyond the known and understandable world. The group chose this name to emphasize their fascination with myths, legends, and ideas about long-extinct Aryan roots. They believed that the true history of their people, its origins, and ancestral homeland were concealed in that place. Although Adolf Hitler showed little interest in the occult side of National Socialism, many of his closest associates, such as Heinrich Himmler and Rudolf Hess, were deeply fascinated by ideas stemming from the teachings of this society. It was Himmler, in particular, who later actively incorporated esoteric beliefs into the activities of his organizations, among which the SS stood out especially. The creation of an organization known as Ahnenerbe became one of the attempts to put these ideas into practical action. Subsequently, under the influence of the Thule Society, this structure served as a source of inspiration and a repository of esoteric knowledge for initiates within its ranks. The Thule Society was founded at the end of the 19th century. Its ideas drew inspiration from the works of various esoteric and mystical thinkers, especially from the writings of the Russian occultist Helena Blavatsky. As a co-founder of the Theosophical Society, established in New York in the late 19th century, she significantly influenced the development of Western esoteric traditions. Her ideas about ancient knowledge, magic, mysticism, and the possibility of contacting higher powers formed the basis of many esoteric teachings and practices, which later spread among various movements and organizations interested in magic, mysticism, and hidden knowledge. Her ideas were a complex weave of different concepts and often appeared contradictory. Among them were suppositions about the evolution of humanity, the existence of long-extinct civilizations, and a mysterious underground empire known as Agartha. Her travels around the world were extensive and fascinating. She claimed to have visited many parts of the planet, including Tibet, where, according to her, she received teachings from mysterious spiritual mentors. These teachers were called Mahatmas or Transcendent Masters, and they revealed to her that throughout human history, highly developed civilizations, called native races, existed. Among these were the ancient Lemuria, about which legends say they once resided in the territories of the Indian or Pacific Oceans. The Lemurians were renowned for their extensive knowledge and powerful abilities, many of which were inherited by their descendants, the Atlanteans. According to Helena Blavatsky, after the destruction of Atlantis, some surviving members of these civilizations continued to influence the development of subsequent cultures and peoples. They sought shelter in secret locations around the world, including deep underground realms and hidden subterranean cities located deep within the Earth's crust. Later, and this was confirmed by research in ancient texts studied by the Theosophical Society, numerous evidences of such mystical places and underground complexes were discovered. Almost every ancient culture eagerly shared legends of encounters with subterranean peoples, their homes, and kingdoms beneath the earth. Some of these legends are perceived as a sort of purification or spiritual insight, where the souls of sinners undergo trials, are purified, and gain a chance for rebirth. However, there are myths that remarkably resonate with each other and form a kind of global mythological narrative. For example, stories about Agartha and its fantastic cities, Shambhala and Padala, despite occurring on different continents and in different eras. These legends invariably feature two types of beings. One are tall giants or advanced reptilian races, inhabitants of the mysterious Agartha. The very word Agartha has roots in Buddhist tradition. Devout Buddhists are deeply convinced of the existence of this underground world, populated by millions of inhabitants and numerous city centers. Among them is the capital of Shambhala, which legends depict as a mystical center ruled by the supreme ruler, connected by tunnels and magical passages. Some scientists and followers of esoteric teachings believe that this underground realm is connected to Tibet and that it was accessed via a legendary tunnel, opened, according to Nikolai Rurik, by a Tibetan Lama. He described this entrance as guarded by initiates of the Lamas, who swear to keep its location strictly secret. Reaching it is no easy task. The passage runs through deep, narrow tunnels where one must exercise extreme caution and patience to pass. In the Indian epic Mahabharata, there is mention of an ancient land Arya which, according to legends, was located on the peaks of high mountains. In its realms, myth states, dwelled divine beings, Nagas, entities that are half human, half fish or reptilian, often depicted as spiritual warriors with hoods adorned with precious stones, symbolizing their connection to mystical forces and light. Despite their antiquity, these legends continue to intrigue scholars and seekers of hidden knowledge, as they unveil the veil over the mysterious world of ancient civilizations and the supernatural empires hidden within the depths of our planet. It is believed that beings known as Nagas possessed impressive technological knowledge and displayed extraordinary unpredictability in their actions. Their behavior sometimes differed with acts of cruelty and ruthlessness, as stories recount cases of abductions and brutal tortures of humans. At the same time, there is an opinion that they may have also had a positive influence on certain events occurring on Earth, contributing to some changes or phenomena. Many believe that the habitat of these mysterious beings lay beneath the ground in Padala, and it is probably no coincidence, for it is in this ancient world that entrances to underground tunnels are located, guarded by lamas. Interestingly, the name of this place matches the name of the palace where the entrance to the tunnels is kept, adding mystery and symbolism to this location. Part 19 of 63. In Indian epics such as the Ramayana, there are stories about the great divine avatar Rama, messenger of the divine intelligence Isagardi, who appeared on earth in the form of a being with bright blue skin and arrived in aerial vehicles called Vimanams. These flying craft, known as chariots of the gods, could carry their passengers through the air as if by magic. Equally remarkable is that the history of aerial transport is closely linked to stories about the inner earth. Ancient legends and myths repeatedly mention flying dirigibles and airships that assisted in underground travel. According to ancient legends from the depths of time, such tunnels connected hidden chambers beneath the pyramids of Giza with a mysterious underground world inhabited by divine forces and spirits. Through these tunnels, pharaohs are believed to have communicated with divine entities governing the underworld. Ancient myths and legends mention gods such as Are, Thoth, and Anubis, who possessed physical and spiritual qualities surpassing those of humans. They were characterized by extraordinary stature, vivid skin color, and eyes often described as bird-like, making them unique beings beyond ordinary human boundaries. Another mystery associated with the history of Arctic exploration arose in 85 AD, when the renowned Viking explorer Eric the Red undertook his expedition and discovered Greenland. Over the following 14 years, between 10,000 and 100,000 Vikings, colonists, settled along its coast, leaving behind traces of their culture. However, from that point onward, all mention of them disappears. Their villages were abandoned, and no one has been able to find either their remains or the source of their disappearance, turning this into one of the greatest unresolved mysteries to this day. Modern Inuit, the indigenous people of Greenland, tell their own version of this event. They seem to know how the Europeans, hundreds of years ago, unexpectedly headed north to a land of wonders, deeply hidden within the bowels of the earth. Local residents call it the land of endless summer, a place where eternal warmth reigns year-round, and nature is bursting with lushness and vibrant colors. According to legends, this place beckoned colonists with its inaccessible beauty and the promise of bliss hidden beneath the earth's surface, akin to a paradise concealed in the depths of the land. In the 11th century, an unusual story emerged in English that is still regarded as part of urban legend. Engravings from that time depict the appearance of mythical creatures emerging from underground depths. Specifically, it is told that local peasants found two children with pale green skin, speaking an unfamiliar language, and despite extreme hunger, only willing to eat raw beans. Unfortunately, soon after, one of them, a boy, died, leaving behind only a sad memory. However, after many years, the surviving girl, who had managed to adapt to the new world, recounted the astonishing circumstances of her appearance on the surface. She explained that she and her brother got lost while following a herd of cattle into a cave, which, due to their mistake, turned out to be the entrance to an underground realm hidden by tunnels and passages. Eventually, emerging onto a vibrant and unusual landscape, they found themselves on the Earth's surface, far across the world. In the 20th century, in 1908, writer and explorer George Emerson published a book titled The Smoky God, in which he narrated the incredible story of Olaf Jansson's journey to the distant Vagar and the 2 years he spent there with his father. They set out on this voyage aboard their own fishing boat, hoping to discover unknown lands beyond the northern horizon. But suddenly, a fierce storm broke out over the polar strait, and the brig was carried deep into the Earth's interior, carrying the explorers farther and farther from the familiar world. In the region where the researcher ended up, he encountered a mysterious ancient race, friendly, intelligent, and tall giants, towering impressive 12 feet above other creatures. Jansson later claimed that their unusual height was due to a unique electric field that had existed in this world since its inception. These giants possessed extraordinary longevity, reaching up to 800 years, making them the wisest inhabitants of these lands. Their inner world seemed warm, cozy, and alive, with a climate that was favorable, where rain fell only once a day, as if to maintain the harmony of natural cycles. The air was filled with a charged atmosphere, creating a sense of a special energetic environment. Jansson believed that the density of atmospheric layers in this world contributed to lush, exuberant vegetation, reaching mesmerizing scales. The title of his book, The Smoky God, refers to the fact that in the depths of the inner lands, he observed an unusual sun that glowed and was shrouded in mist, creating a mysterious and mystical atmosphere. However, the most astonishing for him were the flying crafts, moving at incredible speeds in silence. He described them as vessels with rotating fan-shaped wheels, which, in his opinion, disrupted atmospheric pressure or gravity, enabling them to glide freely through space. These rotating wheels, as Janssen asserted, generated a special force that prevented the crafts from flipping over or losing control, ensuring their stability and maneuverability. After Janssen and his father had spent about 2 years among these beings, a tragic event occurred during one of their journeys to leave the inner world. Their boat was destroyed by an iceberg, and his father died. After some time, Janssen was rescued by fishermen. However, when he shared his incredible story, he was regarded as insane and was institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital. There, he spent a full 28 years of his life. Only at the age of 80 was he able to tell his acquaintance Emerson about his adventures, passing him maps of the Earth's interior and recordings he had made throughout all those years of exploration and discovery. At the same time, roughly in the 19th century, another important expedition took place in Odessa. A Norwegian researcher and Nobel laureate, Dr. Fridtjof Nansen, embarked on a journey to the North Pole. During this expedition, he faced many hardships and unexpected events, as well as confided that he had serious doubts about the whereabouts of the mysterious land he had discovered. Some parts of the map created by one of the famous explorers turned out to be mere imagination or errors, and the locations he marked often did not exist in reality. Many strange and inexplicable events occurred during the expedition. For example, after a period of intense cold, temperatures suddenly shifted and it became incredibly hot, which seemed impossible under such conditions. The exact location of Nansen remains mysteriously unknown, at times, as if he disappears from familiar signs of reality, and the saying he was no longer in Kansas perfectly reflects the ambiguity and enigma of the situation. Deep in the Amazon jungle, near the borders of modern civilization, lived until recently an ancient tribe of Makushi. These people were completely isolated from external influences and nearly cut off from other societies. They claimed to guard the entrance to the inner earth, a mysterious and ancient portal protected by powerful, secret forces. In their stories, they describe in detail their journeys here, as well as the creatures and events that accompanied them along the way, vividly and brightly. According to them, to penetrate the depths of the earth, one must pass through special caves, traveling for about 15 days until encountering luminous or fiery spheres and glowing disks, unusual symbols of transition. Inside the earth, amid lush and often impassable vegetation, there exists a highly developed civilization whose members stand from 3 to 4.5 meters tall. This cultural community shows primitive traits but possesses profound knowledge of natural processes, including information about molten rocks found at considerable depths. This raises the question, how could people without modern knowledge and technology so intricately navigate the details of encounters with the Earth's inner depths and their inhabitants? Their stories contain no obvious contradictions, and listeners often wonder how much of these accounts can be true. However, these mysteries also attracted the interest of organizations such as Nazi Germany and the Society of Thule, which showed a particular fascination with theories of the inner earth and its secrets. In 1938, the leadership of Nazi Germany, headed by Heinrich Himmler, initiated an unusual expedition in search of ancient artifacts and knowledge that, in their view, could shed light on the mysterious sources of power and wisdom hidden deep inside the planet. As part of this mission, he organized the dispatch of a group of scientists aligned with Nazi ideology to remote and difficult-to-access mountain regions of the Himalayas to conduct archaeological and ethnographic research. The entire expedition was led by renowned explorer and zoologist Ernst Schieffer, who possessed extensive experience and authority in the field. The choice of the Himalayas as the location for such an important expedition was no coincidence and was dictated by a carefully planned strategy. This region was specifically recommended by the German scientist Hermann Wirth, a mysterious figure who aspired, at least partially, to play the role of an expert in ancient religions and symbolism. Wirth was a man shrouded in mystery and contradictions, and his views had a significant influence on the development of theories related to the origins of cultures and civilizations predating the prehistoric era. He supported the idea that symbols and signs found in various cultures around the world were not mere coincidences but evidence of a common, unified origin. Wirth hypothesized that all these symbols had once been part of a single system, whose source could be an ancient, highly developed civilization that existed on a lost continent, the legendary Atlantis. According to him, this continent was located in the Atlantic Ocean, presumably between modern-day Portugal and Britain. He believed that a catastrophic event, a severe underwater catastrophe that swallowed Atlantis, caused the destruction of its inhabitants, and that the survivors swore to protect their knowledge and culture from the treacherous forces of the sea, which had engulfed their homeland. In line with this, the surviving Atlanteans began migrating to distant corners of the earth, preferring high mountain regions such as the Tibetan Plateau, where they could hide and preserve their information. Verd believed that it was these descendants of Atlantis who inherited and preserved their ancient knowledge, which was reflected in their cultural and religious symbols and rituals similar to ancient images and signs belonging to their vanished civilization. Thus, the Nazi expedition to Tibet represented a complex blend of mythological ideas, pseudoscientific hypotheses, and ideological goals of the highest order. The senior leadership, headed by Hitler and his closest associates, believed that by discovering and possibly restoring ancient artifacts, knowledge, and manuscripts belonging to this vanished civilization, they could obtain powerful tools to strengthen their ideology and achieve global dominance. In turn, the Thule Society, which at that time supported ideas about seeking secret knowledge and ancient sources of power, also backed this expedition as one of the steps in searching for a hidden entrance to the mysterious underground or concealed part of the legendary land of Agartha, which, according to legend, was concealed somewhere beneath the earth or in other dimensions. The journey to the Himalayas itself was fraught with serious difficulties and required significant logistical effort, as the team faced harsh conditions, steep icy slopes, dangerous mountain passes, and unpredictable nature. The most advanced technical equipment of that era was used, including specialized mountaineering gear, precisely prepared transport, and filming methods. The route led through the most remote villages and ancient sacred monasteries, where, in the hope of finding confirmation of their theories, the scientists conducted ethnographic studies among the local inhabitants. They believed that the native residents of the region could be descendants of the original Aryan race, which, according to their view, preserved its ancient traditions and knowledge in isolation. Nazi ideology claimed that the true Aryan blood and culture had been lost over the centuries, but their traces remained specifically in the highland regions of Tibet. During the expedition, Scheffer and his team carried out numerous anthropometric measurements, measuring skull sizes, noting facial features, trying to find physical similarities with supposed Aryan characteristics to confirm their hypothesis. In addition to these studies, they collected cultural artifacts such as ritual symbols, images, and texts that could have analogues with ancient Scandinavian, Germanic, or Aryan signs present in legends and myths of European peoples. Throughout their work, they photographed religious texts, icons, ritual objects, and meticulously documented local customs and language, comparing them with ancient traditions that resembled the myths of ancient Scandinavian sagas and Germanic legends, further puzzling researchers and emphasizing the region's mysterious nature. All activities related to this expedition were carefully documented and served as an important element of propaganda efforts aimed at shaping the myth of the dominance of the Aryan race and its esoteric knowledge throughout history. During their extraordinary and quite risky journey to the most remote corners of the Himalayas, expedition leader Scheffer and his team encountered an unexpected obstacle: resistance and distrust from the local residents. During their research and travels, the explorers encountered monastery monks and shamans who confirmed the existence of the legendary sacred land of Shambhala, which, according to them, could only be accessed by pure-hearted people with noble intentions. The expedition members paid attention to various signs and symbols found in ancient monasteries and temples, which they believed could serve as some sort of keys unlocking the entrance to the mysterious Shambhala. However, despite long search efforts and the meticulous collection of a vast number of artifacts, manuscripts, and testimonies, no definitive or convincing evidence of specific gates or entrances to this mystical realm was found. The expedition did not discover any physical structures or maps indicating the presence of an entrance or secret channels, nor any other obvious signs confirming the existence of this enigmatic place. As a result, after several months, the team collected thousands of samples of various ancient writings, household items, and artifacts, which were sent to Germany for further study. These findings were intended to be displayed in a German museum called Anerbe, conceived as a kind of memorial and testament to the heritage of the Aryan race. Among the collected exhibits were central objects such as thankas, prayer drums, and various texts containing, in the opinion of Nazi scientists and ideologues, encrypted wisdom of the Aryan race, holding ancient secrets. Regarding the Antarctic expedition, officially titled the Third German Antarctic Expedition, it took place from the 1930s to the 1940s, specifically from 1938 to 1939. Despite declared scientific goals to expand research horizons, this venture was essentially imbued with the geopolitical ambitions of the Third Reich, aiming to strengthen German influence and secure a foothold in this remote and harsh region of the planet. At that time, precisely in the Antarctic region, a vivid and notable scene unfolded, exemplifying how Nazi authorities sought to combine scientific exploration, ideological propaganda, and territorial claims within a single project. The expedition was led by Captain Alfred Richard, an experienced navigator and pilot who had previously participated in challenging Arctic journeys. To accomplish its objectives, the expedition departed from the German aircraft carrier Schwaben, which was equipped with 2 Dornier seaplanes. These aircraft were key elements for aerial reconnaissance and allowed the exploration and mapping of vast areas of Antarctic land, over 600,000 square kilometers, the majority of which was later declared German territory. The main goal of this highly complex operation was to find a suitable location to establish a German whaling station in Antarctica, as at that time whaling was considered one of the most profitable economic activities on Earth. The whaling industry was important not only for obtaining whale oil, which was necessary for the production of margarine and glycerin, but was also viewed as a strategic resource, since the establishment of such a station could serve as a naval base. Additionally, the Nazis' motivation was driven by the need for raw materials to support the armed forces and expand their influence. To achieve these objectives, the ship Schwab employed advanced technology, used aerial photography and meteorological observation equipment, which contributed to more effective data collection about the region's potential. Hydrosailplanes, taking off from Kencha Bend, regularly flew over the vast expanses of Antarctica, thoroughly exploring and marking the icy, barren landscape. They left special darts on the ice surface, engraved with swastikas, symbols serving not only as territorial claims but also as powerful signs of their intentions on this cold, lifeless continent. These lands, dubbed New Schwabenland, became part of a large-scale plan in which Nazi ambitions extended far beyond ordinary economic or military objectives. When the German freight ship, named MS Schwaben, set out on its secret mission to Antarctica, numerous rumors and speculations circulated about its crew. They numbered 33 people, representatives of various specialties, scientists, military personnel, engineers, and even members of the so-called Thule Society. This secret organization was known for its belief in mystical forces and the existence of humans, channelers, possessing special powers and knowledge. No one could precisely explain what motivated them, but one thing was clear: the exploration of the Earth's interior and the hidden history of this mysterious land remained deep in mystery. Only a seasoned perspective and profound knowledge allowed one to comprehend how complex and entangled this uncharted chapter of history truly was. In this context, it is impossible not to recall the outstanding American aviation pioneer, Admiral Richard Byrd Jr. His personal accounts, recorded in diaries and later published by his son, create a unique picture of voyages and explorations that seem to transcend conventional understanding. His account of the flight to the North Pole in 1947 is especially impressive, where Byrd describes encounters with mysterious geographic anomalies and, more astonishingly, encounters with unknown flying vehicles capable of taking control of his aircraft. These devices, according to him, brought him directly to the leader, an entity residing at the core of the Earth's interior, a civilization hidden from ordinary eyes. It is crucial to understand the personality of this individual and his life path in order to assess the credibility of such accounts. Richard Byrd was one of the most respected and high-ranking officers in U.S. military history. He received numerous awards, including the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration awarded for bravery and heroism. During World War II and the two World Wars, he participated in combat and led several major expeditions to Antarctica. After World War II, his command was characterized by high efficiency and strict discipline. On each journey, he kept detailed journals recording every important detail. He was not a person prone to poetic or fantastical visions. His works and films attest to the fact that he lived honestly and was fully aware of the responsibility for his words and decisions. His oral and written statements were always sincere and serious. In an interview he gave in 1954 to the magazine La Gynochronoscope, broadcast live, Byrd spoke about his impressions as if he was trying to convey the true truth to the listeners. His hyperbolic and sometimes mysterious statements only heightened the sense of secrecy surrounding his stories. He noted, "I would very much like to see the Earth beyond the pole, but I didn't specify which one, eastern, western, or another. I called this area the land of eternal mystery, the most peaceful and tranquil part of the planet, and also a spot not marked on any map, a mysterious corner that impressed with its calmness and secrecy." Claiming that this space is comparable in size to the United States, the man was referring to regions that had never been explored by humans and emphasized that this piece of land or ice is the most valuable and important for science. Before each expedition, he declared, "This is the most important expedition in human history," and often repeated that it was a kind of center of the great unknown. These words seemed quite strange, especially considering that he might have been referring either to a huge ice mass or a land area covered with ice. Even if he spoke of the strategic significance of this region, describing it as a peaceful and mysterious place would be more in line with a military perspective. Therefore, the second version most likely implied that, as one of the highest-ranking leaders in military and scientific circles, he was simply expressing his admiration and genuine interest in these unexplored territories. Furthermore, he gave his word to keep the secret, which could have been of vital importance for national security. The question is how seriously he himself took his oath and whether he was honest with everyone, since his words could have been part of a long-standing tactic or strategy. Did he have grounds to believe that revealing these secrets would not cause harm? Or, on the contrary, was he simply trying to emphasize his loyalty and reliability? In February 1947, Bert, the man who did more than anyone to bring the North Pole to the world's knowledge, made a very important and memorable statement: "I would like to see the land beyond the pole, the center of the great unknown." Many people read these words in newspapers or heard them on the radio, but did they think about their own planet, about where its secrets were hidden? What specific place beyond the pole was he referring to? Looking at a map and estimating the distances from nearby known lands, none of them would be closer than 200 miles to the pole. Bert himself called that land unexplored, claiming that after traveling about 1,500 miles in that direction, he had not reached its boundary. But should he not have, logically, returned to civilization? Why was his expedition continuing despite the impossibility of reaching its final destination? Did he expect to see only an ice-covered ocean or, at best, some open water free of ice? However, during his flight, he discovered vast, green, blooming lands with lakes and mountains shining in the sun. Following this, it was announced that he had supposedly discovered two unknown landmasses stretching 4,000 miles. Yet, instead of garnering fame and recognition for his discoveries, the story of them disappeared as if swept away by the wind, into oblivion akin to that which befell the legends of Christopher Columbus. Was Bert trying to transmit what he truly knew without revealing all his knowledge? Did anyone pay attention to his discoveries, or did everything else remain an unrecognized shadow? At that time, the editor of a popular magazine, Ray Palmer, prepared a detailed account of Bert's achievements and discoveries. But when this material was supposed to be published, it mysteriously vanished, as if it had been blocked or removed for some enigmatic reason. Moreover, the printed copies of that issue were heavily damaged, making further processing and reprinting impossible. During the same period, other intriguing facts and hypotheses emerged. Writers and scientists released books claiming that the North Pole contained entrances to the Earth, hidden portals leading to unexplored interior spaces of the planet. Additionally, Bert was accused of excessive exaggerations he allegedly used to become the first person to reach the North Pole. This accusation seemed quite strange, since he himself proved that the poles are not convex, as previously believed, but rather concave. In any case, his claims about travels and discoveries provoked not only excitement but also skepticism among many. He also believed that the South Pole was located at an altitude of about 3,000 meters, while the North Pole was approximately 10,000 feet higher than that level. He wrote that as one approached these mysterious points, the climate changed abruptly, and temperatures rose rapidly. However, one of the most enigmatic and widely speculated mysteries associated with Bert's name was the situation that occurred immediately after World War II, within the framework of an operation called High Jump. Initially, it was said that this was an endless expedition to Antarctica aimed at searching for coal deposits and various natural resources beneath the icy continent. But over time, this version evolved, replaced by reports of preparations for military operations and the establishment of a research base there. The most intriguing question is why such a complex and large-scale operation involved 33 aircraft, 13 Navy ships, and nearly 5,000 military personnel. Why was such an intricate and extensive operation organized under a cloak of secrecy? Even more mysterious is the fact that human casualties occurred during this activity, with fatalities remaining unexplained. Later, it was revealed that the main goal of the expedition was to locate and quickly return Nazi leaders who had hidden in the remote corners of Antarctica. Nonetheless, legends and testimony suggest that the reality was quite different. According to reports, Bert ended his 8-month mission after Chilean press reports about difficulties and a significant number of casualties. However, in the United States, these events were reportedly largely hushed up and even embellished. After the military organized the evacuation of participants, their return home was carried out with strict secrecy, and information about what had happened was quickly classified. Nevertheless, despite all security measures, some details leaked out. Among them were reports of attacks carried out in the sky by destructive, disc-shaped dirigibles. These objects displayed astonishing technological distortions, confirmed by numerous eyewitness accounts. The U.S. Navy Secretary, later Minister of Defense, James Forrestal, began publicly stating, President Truman was forced to dismiss him due to abuse of authority, and shortly thereafter, he was institutionalized in the psychiatric ward of the Navy Hospital in Bethesda. There, he was forbidden from communicating with anyone, not even his own wife. When this high-ranking individual was found dead, his death was officially classified as suicide, and the investigation was closed without further explanation. Another strange detail is that after completing his military expedition in 1947, Bert suddenly disappeared. In his communications with a reporter from the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio, he mentioned that he had no intention of frightening anyone without a good reason. However, at the same time, he expressed concern that in the event of a potential new war, the continental part of the United States could become a target for flying objects capable of moving rapidly and nearly without restriction from pole to pole. It is in this context that Bert's posthumous diary comes into play as a vital testimony. Although during his lifetime he kept his information completely secret, albeit in a mysterious form, after his tragic death, his son made the diary public, revealing an entirely different chapter of history that society and the mass media had not known before. It all began with such words, "I am obliged to keep this diary secret because it is connected to the most intimate mysteries. It is dedicated to my flight in the Arctic, carried out on February 19, 1947. The time has now come when the minds of men must give way to new truths. We must accept the fact that truth is often hidden from view, inaccessible to immediate understanding. At the moment I write these lines, I am forbidden to disclose any documents. They may never see the light of day, but I feel it is my duty to fulfill this mission and do everything possible to publish them, despite everything. I hope that greed, avarice, and the unjust use of some people will never again obscure the truth that must be revealed to the world." In his diary, Bert continued describing the extraordinary and sometimes incomprehensible scene that unfolded to him during his journey. He detailed how, after traveling just 1 mile, he was stunned to see that the bleak, endless, and cold ice beneath him had transformed into lush, green-filled forests, lakes, rivers, and majestic mountains. Around him, he observed numerous wild animals, and what struck him most was the appearance of a massive creature, a mammoth, a reminder of long-extinct prehistoric animals. He noted that the surrounding nature had an extraordinary and mysterious hue, as if everything was painted in unusual colors that were difficult to describe. At that moment, he suddenly realized he had entered a different dimension, an entirely separate real world that was unlike the familiar environment he knew. Once, while flying in an airplane, Bert noticed unusual objects nearby, spacecraft that seemed to accompany him through the air. Their movements were coordinated and smooth, and he instantly understood that he was not alone in the sky. These devices appeared to be guiding him. Soon, he saw ahead of him an entire city, an architectural marvel where a sense of complete harmony and tranquility reigned, and, remarkably, despite the astonishing sights, he landed effortlessly, even though he was not in control of his aircraft. Upon his arrival, he was greeted by wise and benevolent inhabitants of this mysterious place. They named their city Agartha. The most remarkable thing was that Bert, finding himself in this otherworldly land, felt somewhat confused and disoriented because everything happening was so unusual and unprecedented that he could barely fully understand exactly where he had ended up. After that, he and his team were led to a friendly person whom they called the ruler of Magarda. He looked very fragile, appeared older than he seemed, and possessed the wisdom of all ages. They were told that they were granted permission to enter this place, despite invisible barriers, thanks to Bert's high moral and ethical qualities. The ruler explained that their people always cared for humanity's safety, worrying about the future of the planet, especially since humankind experienced the horrors of atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He noted that sensing danger from meddling in the affairs of others, their race tried to intervene, but their ship was attacked by the forces and military equipment of our countries. This unpredictable and severe lesson led them to cease attempts to interfere in the destinies of Earth's inhabitants. The local residents asked Bert to deliver an important message, a warning against the development of civilization so that they would not repeat past mistakes and would not expose themselves to new dangers. After this conversation, the hosts took them to the spacecraft and sent them back to the so-called Dark World, a planet or dimension from which they had come. Well, finishing his story, Bert admitted that it was precisely this message he conveyed to high-ranking officials in the Pentagon, in the very top echelon. Subsequently, he was subject to a serious interrogation by special services and medical personnel who insisted on silence to prevent him from revealing what he had learned, in the interest of humanity's overall well-being. He was deeply shaken by what had happened, realizing the full significance of what he had seen and heard. But eventually, he inclined to the belief that he must follow orders and remain silent, despite internal resistance and moral tension. 10 years passed, and finally, in his last diary, he wrote that all those years since 1947, he had carefully kept the delayed secret because he was entrusted to do so. However, inside, he was developing a sense of protest. He felt that the hidden truth he concealed conflicted with his own moral beliefs. He noted that in anticipation of the approaching long night, he sensed that this concealed truth would not disappear with him, it would remain and continue to live. According to Bert, like any truth, this one, even a holy one, would eventually triumph and find its place. He believed that this truth was the only hope for the salvation of the human race. He stated that he had learned and felt it himself, as his spirit was reborn in faith and a bright future was born. For him, fulfilling his duty to this cruel and ruthless military-industrial complex became an act of struggle and self-sacrifice. He understood that years of darkness and oblivion were only a temporary test, and that one day, when this long night ended, the bright, blinding light of truth would return. He believed that those who were connected to the darkness would fall under its radiance, for he had seen that land beyond the pole, the center of all vast and mysterious unknowns hidden from human eyes. This place is the true point where an immense, unidentified force resides. In conclusion, he admitted that this extraordinary and incredible story is a genuine testament to an ordinary, yet simultaneously astonishing person. Could the son of this man, Berta, have ever released false information that would discredit his dear and respected father? Or perhaps Berta himself deliberately planned everything, creating an entire intrigue to cruelly mock his fate and inheritance? These questions remain unanswered. It is only possible to speculate that his story is one of the most mysterious and layered ever known to humanity. Probably, many of us, contemplating the existence of secrets hidden behind the gray walls of official history, without a doubt, recognize that the influence and authority of those events rooted in the past often seem undeniable. Among these mysterious legends is one that speaks of a hidden underground Nazi base in Antarctica, known as Base 211. Even those who believe in the reality of incredible underground facilities have mentioned it. Interestingly, in 1935, a German researcher created a map depicting Antarctica without its usual icy cover, and also discovered on it numerous underwater passages running beneath the entire continent, as if planning to explore mysterious spaces within the Earth. At the same time, a German submarine commanded by Captain Heinrich Broden declared that it had reached the deepest part of the Earth and expressed a desire not to return, adding, "The Earth is truly fallen," which only fuels rumors of hidden worlds inside the Earth. In 1935, one German scientist developed a map that, according to his version, could help understand the disappearance of the expedition of the Irishman Frank Borden. The crew's testimonies of that submarine fully confirmed these claims. They stated that during their journey, they found evidence supporting these legends. Later, in the 60s, renowned cartographer Heinrich Barron created a map depicting Antarctica without its icy cover, with passages and corridors in its center, as if connecting all parts of the continent. The most remarkable detail is a point marked on the map as an entrance to the inner Earth, where, according to legend, a hidden, unexplored part of the world is located. And it seems there is another dark detail in this story. It is believed that in the final days of World War II, Hitler and his associates managed to escape from Germany and shortly thereafter headed to the depths of Antarctica, finding shelter inside the Earth. After the war, it was revealed that over 2,000 German and Italian scientists, along with nearly 1 million missing persons, vanished without a trace, elusive, as if they had dissolved into the air. Sometimes, such thoughts seem madness, a common conspiracy theory, and it's understandable why many do not believe in their veracity. However, among supporters of these hypotheses was a great nation, the United States of America. On this basis, a large-scale military operation known as High Jump was launched in 1946. Then, under the leadership of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, an installation was built on the icy expanses of the southern continent, a research base called Little American Fourth. Its official mission was to test new equipment and assess the combat readiness of U.S. forces in extreme climate conditions. But it is also possible that behind this veneer lay much more serious, secret objectives. In Germany, in the mid-20th century, another mystery lurked: various legends about unusual rocks and monuments located in the area of Teutoburg. There, in dense forests, stand three giant sandstone pillars called Externstein. These monuments are not merely natural formations but are shrouded in ancient secrets, crowned with legends of their antiquity and sacred significance. For centuries, they were celebrated as sites of secret rites and astronomical observations, and some believed that these rocks served as an ancient observatory, predating written sources. In those distant times, Externstein was considered a sacred community, protected by the spirits of ancient German tribes, and until the early 20th century, no one seriously thought about its potential as a site with a dark history. However, with the beginning of the 1930s, the situation changed. Dark forces and seekers of ancient secrets paid special attention to it. The SS organization Ahnenerbe showed interest in these megastructures, seeing in them the legacy of the Aryan race, preserved since ancient times. By the 1930s, Externstein had become a center of occultism and magic, a place where secret rituals and research were conducted. In 1935, this area attracted close scrutiny. Manipulations began, aimed at uncovering the mysteries of the numinous stone formations, and ancient legends about the sacred significance of these rocks found confirmation in new, wild practices. Gimler, along with his team of scholars, believed that the stones located at a site known as Externstein once marked a sacred point where Irminsul stood, a sacred pillar, or, in another version, a majestic tree that played a crucial role in the religious rituals and worldview of the Saxons before their conversion to Christianity. This object, being revered and holy to the ancient people, could serve not only ceremonial functions related to religious rites but also act as a place of power, a source of spiritual energy and inspiration for the people. It is likely that Irminsul embodied not only Saxon spiritual values but also reinforced social order, symbolizing continuity and ancient traditions passed down through generations. For the Saxons, this ancient symbol became a unifying point, a connection to the past, especially after in the 9th year AD, the army of Germanic tribes achieved a decisive victory, uniting scattered pagan communities and winning a battle against Roman legions. This poignant moment cemented Irminsul's status as a symbol of national identity and steadfast resistance to external enemies, particularly during periods when Frankish conquerors led by Charlemagne expanded their territories. However, by the end of the 6th century, around AD 770, Charlemagne ordered the destruction of Irminsul, a strategic but harsh step in his military campaigns aimed at forcing the Saxons to accept Christianity. This act primarily aimed to dismantle the Saxon spiritual and cultural foundation, reducing their resistance to Frankish rule and integrating these peoples into the new empire. In the Middle Ages, the Saxons were a Germanic tribe known for their strength, resilience, and defiance of Christianization. These traits, combined with their deep and ancient heritage, over time became subjects of idealization by the Nazis, who sought in them examples of strong and free agrarian peoples. Externstein, located on the border between modern Germany and Austria, had long been alluring with its mysterious stories. This place, shrouded in myths and legends dating back to the times when humans first inhabited these lands, served as a sacred center for the peoples living here in prehistoric times. Archaeological excavations conducted in subsequent years confirmed that Externstein indeed held sacred significance for ancient peoples. On the stones, various carvings and inscriptions can be found, indicating that this site had a high spiritual value in the Middle Ages, perhaps functioning as a Christian hermitage or pilgrimage center, attracting believers from all around. The most famous relic of this site is a relief depicting the scene of Christ's removal from the cross, dated to approximately the 10th century, which attests to its long-standing cultural and historical importance. During the Nazi period, extensive research was actively conducted at the Externstein regarding the search for evidence of ancient Germanic cults and pagan religious sites. The initiatives of that time were evident in the efforts of Nazi organizations, including Ahnenerbe, which aimed to restore this site to its former historical significance connected to Aryan heritage. As part of these investigations, the Nazis distortively altered historical carvings and inscriptions on stones to present them as proof that it was Charlemagne who destroyed the Irminsul, thereby confirming that modern Externstein is in fact the true Irminsul. This false narrative gained widespread popularity, becoming ingrained in the public consciousness and shaping a distorted perception of history. The Nazis saw in the rich Aryan heritage evidence of the superiority of ancient Germans and their spiritual strength. As a result, numerous legends spread about this site during the Nazi era, and on Adolf Hitler's birthday, members of youth organizations would come here to participate in singing and rituals, creating an atmosphere of grandeur and sacredness. Himmler, obsessed with occult ideas and the mystical aspects of Aryan supremacy, financially supported archaeological excavations and research at Externstein, hoping to find evidence linking this place to ancient Roman or Germanic paganism. He sought to collect Aryan relics and artifacts that would reinforce racial theories propagated by the Nazi regime, everything aimed at confirming the antiquity and spiritual power of the Germanic people and emphasizing its special place in world history. Externstein became a key element of Nazi nationalist ideology, which centered on concepts of racial superiority and cultural purity. This site was depicted as a sacred pre-Christian sanctuary reflecting the grandeur and spiritual heritage of the ancient Germanic peoples long before it was distorted and lost over time through later cultures and influences. Propaganda played a crucial role in transforming Externstein into a national monument, a symbol of national pride and ancient glory. In literary works, films, and art produced during that period, it was often portrayed in its magnificent natural beauty, essentially as a bridge between the modern world and the heroic past of the Germanic people. Youth and schoolchildren, especially members of the Hitler Youth Organization, regularly took excursions here, where, under strict guidance from teachers and ideological mentors, they learned about mystical and nationalist interpretations of the site's history. This served as one of the ways to conduct full ideological indoctrination, an ongoing process of instilling Nazi-era values in the youth and fostering a sense of belonging to the ancestral legacy. Externstein became a site for numerous ritual ceremonies related to the celebrations of solstices and other significant events for the culture and ideology. These events were often imbued with an atmosphere of sacred ritual, a sense of holiness, and a connection to the masculine, warrior tradition of the Germanic peoples. Pseudoscientific theories were not uncommon, promoting racial ideologies that justified the supposed superiority and chosen status of the Germanic nation. Surrounded by romanticized images of ancestral warrior traditions, Externstein transformed into a symbol used to reinforce ideological positions and to instill visitors with ideas of national exceptionalism and spiritual strength. After the Nazi victory in World War II became impossible and the regime fell under the weight of history, a complex process of denazification and re-evaluation began. Its goal was to remove Nazi ideological influences and restore its historical significance independent of the criminal regime. As part of this process, reassessments of archaeological finds and historical evidence related to Externstein were conducted. Many indications of its use across different periods were uncovered, as a place of worship, a Christian hermitage, or even a pilgrimage site. Modern archaeological research shows that the true history of this place is much deeper and more diverse than previously assumed. These ancient rocks, formed over 70 million years ago, have witnessed numerous cultural transformations, transitions, and events over the centuries. Their unique shape and natural structure inspired various interpretations, sometimes very different from one another. During this time, complex sculptural reliefs, wooden stairs, and caves were carved into the rocks, accessible via constructed steps and bridges. From a scientific perspective, many of these installations are often associated with religious monuments or relics from Christian medieval times, giving the site a special historical depth. The most famous and impressive depiction at Externstein is a large relief, most likely representing the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. This theme is widely prevalent in Christian art and symbolizes suffering and salvation. The relief features Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus carefully removing Christ's body from the cross, while nearby are Mary, his mother, and Mary Magdalene, expressing deep grief and compassion. The high level of detail allows one to perceive the expressive emotions and inner tenderness of the figures. It is presumed to date from the 10th century AD, attesting to the importance and veneration of this motif in medieval Europe. In addition to Christian reliefs on the rocks, there are other figures, patterns, and symbols whose origins and meanings remain less clear, yet no less intriguing. Among them are various niches, holes, miniature figures, and geometric patterns, which, according to scholars, could have an astronomical orientation or be connected to older pre-Christian traditions rooted deep in antiquity. Overall, these ancient reliefs and structures testify to the richness and diversity of cultural layers accumulated over thousands of years. Therefore, despite the fateful transformations and the use of these rocks in certain historical periods for ideological purposes, their true significance and multi-layered history reveal them not only as symbols of nationalist power but also as mysterious witnesses to centuries-old cultural processes that took place on the shores of ancient Germany. Interpreting these images is a complex and multifaceted task, as they may conceal multiple meanings and historical contexts. In some cases, such figures and symbols could have served as representations of pagan gods or divine beings worshipped by ancient tribes long before Christian missionaries arrived in the region. There are also theories suggesting that some of these carved figures are related to observations of astronomical phenomena, particularly solstices and equinoxes, allowing us to hypothesize that Externstein possibly functioned as an ancient, sophisticated astronomical observatory. This perspective aligns with the widely held concept among many ancient peoples that sacred structures often had a dual purpose as calendar complexes and as expressions of the human connection to higher powers. Today, Externstein remains a powerful symbol of natural beauty and historical cultural heritage. It is captivating not only for its picturesque landscape but also for its rich history, intertwined with various eras and cultural layers. This history vividly illustrates how different regimes in different times could have used such monuments for their ideological aims, often distorting their true significance. Thus, the task of modern society is to protect these unique objects from distortions and misuse, as well as to help people understand their genuine historical and cultural aspects. Once great monuments of the past should not become tools for manipulation and propaganda that obscure their true heritage. Over the centuries, adventurers, knights, and even monarchs have devoted their efforts to seeking the Holy Grail, a subject shrouded in countless legends and mysteries. It is said that Jesus Christ used it during the Last Supper and that it possesses extraordinary properties. Legends tell of its healing qualities, and some even claim that with this artifact, it was possible to resurrect the dead. These mythic qualities enhanced the mystical perception of this relic, transforming it into an object of worship and quest, symbolizing spiritual and mystical perfection. In the real world, alongside numerous seekers, there emerged even more unexpected, sometimes sinister, figures who, despite their mysteriousness, exhibited a deep interest in possessing this sacred object. Particularly notable were the Nazi leaders, obsessed with the idea of restoring Germany to its former glory through occult forces and ancient relics. In their pursuit of power and global dominance, materials about the Holy Grail and other mysterious artifacts took on special significance. They believed that possessing such objects would not only grant them supernatural power but also reinforce the propaganda myth of racial superiority. In this context, it is interesting to tell about a figure shrouded in mystery and associated with dark fame: Atron, a German medievalist known for his fascination with legends of the Holy Grail and distorted notions imposed by Nazi ideology. He was born in 1904 in Michelstadt, a small town in Germany. His early life was marked by an obsession with medieval legends, which led to his involvement in one of the controversial and disputed organizations closely linked to the history of the SS. Atron's scholarly interests included studying religious movements and esoteric teachings of the Middle Ages, particularly the Cathars, who thrived in southern France from the 10th to the 13th centuries. The Cathars were distinguished by their vehement opposition to the Catholic Church, which they viewed as corrupt and overly materialistic. They were among the most active opponents of the dominant church, and their teachings, along with their mysterious rituals, made them subjects of intense scrutiny by both the church and researchers. Within this context, Atron's interest in their historical activities, as well as the legends associated with the mystical aspects of medieval Europe, often intersected with his fascination with secret knowledge, conspiracies, and symbolism used in religious and occult practices of the era. Some historical sources even claimed that the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament were not the same entity but two separate divine forces, with the former as the source of sin and the latter as a symbol of goodness and mercy. This extreme view from church doctrines reached its peak during the Albigensian Crusades, aimed at eradicating the Cathar heretics, whom they considered dangerous enemies. During those times, particular interest from the church was stirred by stories about the Cathars, especially rumors that they were connected to the Holy Grail, the heroic and mysterious protector, which some believed could be used to oppose the authority of the Catholic Church. In the early 1930s, a philosopher and researcher named Rand published a book titled Crusade Against the Grail, in which he examined various hypotheses and theories related to this mysterious artifact in detail. In his work, he proposed the idea that the Cathars might have been the guardians of the Holy Grail, a legendary relic carrying deep spiritual significance. This concept attracted the attention of Nazi leaders, particularly Heinrich Himmler, who, in turn, reached new heights in his fascination with the secrets of ancient relics and myths. Himmler funded expeditions aimed at finding Thor's hammer, the legendary weapon of the Nordic gods, created using technologies lost in ancient times. It was said that this hammer possessed incredible destructive power and could ensure dominance and victory in any battle. Himmler firmly believed that the symbol preserved in Thor's hammer was a source of strength capable of restoring the German people's former greatness. Therefore, he spared no effort and resources to support archaeological expeditions in Scandinavia and Germany dedicated to finding this powerful artifact, where paganism was especially revered. Rand's work was so closely linked to Himmler's ideology that the latter proposed that the scholar join the SS structure and provided continuous financial support for his research. Thanks to these resources, Rand was able to undertake several significant expeditions and expand his knowledge of mystical objects surrounded by legends. He traveled across Scandinavian lands, northern Italy, and other regions of Europe in search of the Holy Grail, a sacred relic or court that legends spoke of. Despite his initial enthusiasm, relations between Rand and the SS officials became heavily strained. Internal conflicts and disagreements hindered fruitful work. As a researcher and historian by nature, he was more interested in mysticism, the mysteries of the medieval era, and the romance of ancient legends than the ideology propagated by the Nazis, which often carried a harsh and racist tone. Moreover, rumors about his homosexual orientation, which was strictly condemned in the Third Reich, made his position within the secret organization extremely unstable and vulnerable. Nevertheless, despite these internal difficulties, Rand decided to continue participating in the expeditions to investigate the Holy Grail. This decision was driven by a complex entanglement of personal ambitions, pressure from authority structures, and an irresistible desire to confirm his hypotheses about the Cathars and their mysterious secrets. In 1936, he embarked on a dangerous journey through the ancient fortresses of the Cathars in France, regions filled with castles, secret caves, and long-abandoned ruins holding numerous secrets of the past. As the expedition advanced through Languedoc, they continuously searched for signs of the Cathars, remnants of their ancient rituals, symbols, and encrypted messages. The team employed not only traditional archaeological methods and historical research but also more unusual and mystical practices, making their journey particularly exhilarating. Taran, a member of this group renowned for his romantic disposition, often encountered more calculating and sometimes even sinister members of his team, driven solely by a desire for power and material gain. While he sought evidence of spiritual wisdom and unattainable superiority, his companions were occasionally motivated by a thirst for dominance, creating clear conflicts and tensions within the group. As a result, the journey was sometimes a discovery of new secret corners of southern France and ancient fortresses, and at other times a source of disappointment, as it became increasingly clear that the coveted Holy Grail remained elusive, seeming to vanish beyond the horizon into the depths of antiquity. The deeper the expedition delved into the lands of Pyrenees, the harder it became to determine where exactly this mystical artifact was hidden, and how far it was from reality. For many centuries, the primary refuge and starting point for the Cathars was the fortress of Mansegur, a secluded and formidable stronghold located in southwestern France. In the mid-13th century, this fortress became the site of one of the most famous and tragic confrontations experienced by the Cathars and the royal armies of France. Fierce and tense events unfolded there because, over nearly 9 months filled with oppressive anticipation and exhaustion, thousands of French soldiers attempted to force the defenders of the fortress to surrender. Despite exhausting sieges and numerous assault attempts, resistance persisted, and this defense became one of the symbols of the struggle for faith and ideology. Ultimately, when the defenders ran out of options, some were forced to surrender. Many Cathars, refusing to renounce their beliefs and religious views, were brutally executed. Hundreds of them were burned alive at the stake, a painful retribution for disobedience and steadfastness. However, there is a theory suggesting an alternative course of events. According to it, some of the defenders managed to secretly leave the fortress before its fall. These alleged survivors, according to legends, took with them treasures that many considered to be the Holy Grail, objects of incredible symbolic and religious value associated with legends of a sacred vessel capable of granting immortality or revealing the secrets of eternal life. The same story was told by those who believed these treasures, imbued with mystical significance, were brought to Europe by the Crusaders or the Templars, bearing the marks of their entire mystical past. In excavations and literary musings, there exists a theory that the battering ram, influenced by occult teachings and mystics, connected Mansagur with the legendary Grail castle Mansalvat, preserved in German legend. Mansalvat is a renowned medieval work created around the 12th century by the great German poet Wolfram von Eschenbach. This literary masterpiece is considered one of the earliest sources mentioning the Grail in European culture and literature. The epic describes the quest for the Holy Grail, undertaken by the knight Parzival, one of the most famous knights of Arthurian legend. His journey is filled with numerous spiritual and moral trials that require the hero to engage in profound reflection and inner conquest. Particularly intriguing is the connection between Montserrat and Mansalvat, which may have arisen due to the mystical appearance of the mountain and the legends surrounding it, imbued with magic and fairy tale imagery. Montserrat has long been a place not only of religious worship but also holding a special status in medieval culture. There stood an ancient monastery, surrounded by numerous legends about the Black Madonna, a statue renowned for its breathtaking beauty and mystical power. Encircled by impressive cliffs and unusual rock formations, these natural features created an otherworldly atmosphere, filling the heart with a sense of mystery and magic. It is easy to imagine that such locations could serve as an illustration of the mythical Grail Castle, a place where the secrets and spiritual treasures of ancient legends are concentrated. In his search at Montserrat, Taran was guided not only by scientific curiosity but also by a desire to fulfill the hopes of his patrons from intelligence agencies. His internal drive, linked to religious history and mystical legends, resonated with the romantic and mystical feelings he experienced towards this ancient place. The research process involved numerous hiking expeditions, careful study of the region's geological features, and consultations with local specialists, religious scholars and historians who helped better understand the cultural layer and historical context. Throughout his expedition, Taran's team made several archaeological finds, mainly objects from the medieval era, old coins, ceramic fragments, manuscripts, which undoubtedly had scientific value. However, none of the discovered artifacts were directly related to the legend of the Grail, which disappointed Taran, a participant and scientific head of the expedition, as he hoped to find solid evidence linking Montserrat to the legends of the Holy Grail and its discovery in these legendary lands. The outcome of his work was more of a subdued and restrained conclusion, in which he presented his results as a valuable cultural study, contributing to a deeper understanding of the region's religious rituals, traditions, and historical artifacts. Of course, he failed to achieve success in the search for the Holy Grail, which caused him a certain sense of disappointment and uncertainty. After the expedition, the authorities' attitude towards Taran significantly worsened. His personal life and, in particular, his homosexuality, within the brutal and dangerous repressive environment, as well as his inability to live up to the grand expectations of the higher leadership, played their role. As a result, he was forced to resign from his position and later took his own life, leaving behind a memory as a person who sought to uncover the secrets of the past and understand the mysteries of legends that remained inaccessible to him. The failed expedition to Montserrat, accompanied by personal and ideological conflicts, became the cause of a profound crisis in its author's soul, ultimately leading to his tragic and mysterious death. This man died in 1939, when his body was discovered in the snowy Austrian Alps, near a small settlement called Kutain. The circumstances of his death gave rise to many rumors, assumptions, and unconfirmed theories, turning it into a subject of speculation and legend. The official version indicated hypothermia as the cause of death, but most researchers and witnesses believed there was something much more complex and ambiguous behind it. Many thought it was a suicide, driven by intense disappointment and internal despair caused by personal struggles and discord in his professional life. Some persistent theories hypothesized that his death might have resulted from deliberate actions. According to these, he could have been murdered by colleagues, members of the SS, because he was increasingly troubled by his refusal to uphold the cult and ideological dogmas of the Nazi regime, as well as his inability to achieve significant progress in realizing his goals. In 1941, shortly thereafter, Himmler, the head of the Gestapo and one of the leading figures in Nazi Germany, decided to undertake his own expedition to Montserrat in search of the legendary Holy Grail. As part of a diplomatic mission, he visited Spain and the territory of the monastery that became a sort of secret objective for him. This visit was part of a broader strategy to attempt to forge alliances with Francisco Franco's regime and also served as a cover for his esoteric and mystical interests. Himmler was accompanied by various specialists. He himself studied the history of the monastery and its religious relics, but his main goal remained gathering information and seeking clues that could lead to the discovery of the Holy Grail. During his conversations with church officials, he carefully examined the details of the monastery's history, aiming to uncover any hidden secrets embedded within its walls. Despite the ceremonial and historically rich nature of the expedition, its results were rather disappointing. Monks of the Montserrat, fearing possible unpleasant consequences and associations with Himmler, provided little valuable and reliable material. This baffling experience once again underscored how limited and fantastical in their hopes the search for Himmler regarding supernatural artifacts was, which, in essence, turned out to be more of a dream than reality. The legend of the Holy Grail has endured for centuries, transforming into one of the most famous and mysterious symbols. After the end of World War II and the collapse of the Nazi era, the figure of the Grail, along with associated myths about the Knights Templar and the Holy Knights, became the subject of numerous theories and speculations from around the world. In the 1980s, specifically in 1982, under the influence of new perspectives and interpretations, researchers such as Michael Bygent, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln published a book titled Holy Blood, Holy Grail. In this work, they proposed a completely new concept of the Grail myth, suggesting that it was not merely a Christian relic but a metaphor closely connected to the genealogy of Jesus Christ. According to them, this lineage was preserved through a union between Christ and Mary Magdalene, which is no less mysterious and intriguing. Their theory claimed that the keepers of this secret were allegedly the Cathars, heretics who for centuries safeguarded and transmitted the seed of the secret regarding the origin of this sacred object. Later, after the suppression of the Cathars, the military mission to preserve and protect this secret was continued by the Templars, an order of knights founded during the Crusades. They are still considered the successors of this heritage. The structure and content of the book made a strong impression on Dan Brown, and it was this work that inspired him to create his own popular novel, released in 2003, called The Da Vinci Code. Despite numerous searches, research, and attempts to prove their hypotheses, none have received definitive confirmation. The true origin of the Holy Grail, its exact location, and its true essence remain a mystery to scholars and adventurers to this day, continuing to excite minds and imaginations worldwide. Many legends and mysterious stories surrounding this unusual and enigmatic artifact constantly add new layers to its long-shrouded secret, turning it into one of the most fascinating and intriguing enigmas in human history. Among the numerous discoveries made by prehistoric explorers, one of the most significant and truly astonishing was the discovery of the Mauer Cave. This unique cave is located in the southern foothills of the Jurassic Mountains in Bavaria and immediately gained fame due to its archaeological wealth and the mysterious aura surrounding it since ancient times. The discovery of the cave revealed a veritable treasure trove of finds that allowed researchers to reconstruct a more detailed picture of human life in Europe during the Paleolithic era. This event became one of the most prominent and significant milestones in the study of ancient history, especially because it is associated with the name of the outstanding German archaeologist Rudolf Rüdiger Schmidt, a man who dedicated his life to researching prehistoric Europe. His many years of work contributed greatly to a deeper understanding of humanity's early epochs, and his research on the Oleniak culture acquired particular importance for the entire scientific community. It can be said that Schmidt's activities had a substantial influence on the development of archaeology in Germany and on the standards of its modern approach. His name is inextricably linked with the comprehensive study of stratigraphy and archaeological cultures, which helped clarify when and how the first representatives of modern humans appeared in Europe. His discoveries, along with the methods he employed, became a model for subsequent archaeological research, challenging established approaches of the time and advancing scientific practice. Schmidt gained a reputation as a scholar who was deeply committed and dedicated to his profession, valuing not only making discoveries but also understanding their significance in the context of history. When he was invited to lead excavations in the Mauer Cave, he gladly accepted the offer, understanding that these depths held the key to understanding early human history. The Ahnenerbe organization saw the cave as a crucial site for scientific research, as it possessed immense potential to unlock the secrets of ancient times. The historical and cultural mission of the Ahnenerbe, established under Nazi leadership under Heinrich Himmler, was to proclaim the superiority of the Aryan race through archaeology, anthropology, and historical studies. This organization provided resource support, which was often lacking for the scientific community at that time due to the difficult economic situation. It was precisely the support from Ahnenerbe that became the powerful driving force enabling Schmidt and his team to conduct extensive excavations inside the cave, seeking to fill gaps in knowledge about early human history. Leading research at the expansive Mauern site, the scientist and his specialists uncovered several cultural layers, each containing valuable information about the methods and material practices of those times. Their findings included tools, artistic and ritual objects, and fragments of human remains. All of this allowed for a comprehensive reconstruction of the life of Upper Paleolithic people, as well as insights into their culture and technological development. Schmidt's approach to conducting excavations was systematic and meticulous, enabling not only the collection of artifacts but also careful documentation of their context and stratigraphy. In this way, he laid a solid scientific foundation for further research and more accurate interpretation of the obtained data. Despite the scientific rigor and objectivity he maintained, an important part of his work still involved the political aspect. His affiliation with the Ahnenerbe organization meant that artifacts found in caves were often used by the Nazi regime for propaganda purposes and as part of their ideological program. This placed the scientist in a difficult position, to remain true to scientific ethics or to follow political motives that often conflicted with his personal beliefs. Like many of his colleagues, Schmidt found himself balancing between professional integrity and the demands of the authorities, striving to preserve his scientific dignity despite the political backdrop of the events unfolding around him. Initially, participation in expeditions related to the Ahnenerbe served essentially as an opportunity for genuine archaeological research and discoveries. However, over time, this activity turned into a tool used to achieve political goals dictated by the regime. Since the leaders of this campaign sought to use archaeological findings to substantiate their racial theories, scientists faced numerous difficulties and contradictions. It was particularly notable that in the autumn of 1937, Dr. Eysen Bomers, a Frisian archaeologist who had previously shown promise through his research, entered this sphere. That same year, he applied to the SS Excavation Department and soon became head of significant archaeological excavations. He achieved a number of notable successes, making sensational discoveries including mammoth remains, beads crafted from its tusk, and exquisitely made stone tools. All these findings were associated with the so-called Cro-Magnons, representatives of the modern human type, named after a rock shelter in France where their remains were first uncovered in the 18th century. Bomers hypothesized that Cro-Magnons, renowned for their advanced anatomical and cognitive development, could have originated from Germany. This hypothesis strikingly aligned with the ultranationalist views of Hitler and his close associates, such as Himmler, who claimed that Germany was the cradle of human civilization and progress. However, these claims were met with criticism from the majority of historians and archaeologists, as the prevailing opinion was that Cro-Magnons originated in eastern parts of Europe beyond Germany's borders. This perspective remains relevant to this day. An important aspect of the debate was also the fact that Bomers believed Cro-Magnons descended from Neanderthals, which was entirely at odds with Himmler's views, for whom the ideas of a direct evolutionary link between modern humans and Neanderthals were considered madness and unacceptable. This gap in approaches placed the scientist in a difficult position. He attempted to reconcile scientific research with the strict political demands and ideological dogmas of the regime. In the early 1940s, Bomers began correspondence with Wolfram Zivers, the head of the department overseeing the leadership of NNHRB. In his letters, the scientist repeatedly emphasized his commitment to nationalist views, despite the fact that the sanctioning authorities and the higher echelons of Nazi Germany did not share his ideas about human origins and evolution. Sometimes, this could have been a strategic measure. He tried to preserve his position and authority, as well as continue his scientific work under the regime's control, which held the resources and opportunities for research. Excavations in the Ma Caves, which began after World War II, continued and yielded increasingly valuable discoveries, expanding our knowledge of early human history in the region. Among such finds is the discovery of the famous figurine known as the Venus of Mauran or Rhodophon Mauran, which was found on the 19th anniversary of the 21st century. This miniature figure, made of limestone and painted with red ochre, dates to approximately 37,000 years ago. It was discovered by lead archaeologist Trollertsatz, who conducted excavations covering different historical periods, starting from the late 1940s. From the 1950s to the 1970s, archaeological research brought numerous important finds and new insights into the climate and natural environment of those eras. Particularly valuable were fragments of bones from mammoths, cave bears, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, and other fauna of the time, which helped reconstruct the environmental picture and the way of life of our ancient ancestors. The finds at the archaeological sites included not just random objects, but high-quality leaf-shaped points belonging to tools used by Neanderthals of the Messier migration period. These ancient discoveries serve as important evidence that Neanderthals inhabited these lands long before the appearance of the first Cro-Magnons, who were more advanced in terms of intellect and art. The discovery of such tips indicates a long-standing continuity of human activity in this area, as well as that the territory was inhabited long before the initial phase of migration by our modern ancestors. In the 1920s and early 1930s, the Science Academy of Eastern Russia organized an extensive expedition to the Karelian region, located between Finland and Russia, with the aim of studying the ancient prehistory and archaeological monuments of this area. The mission was led by the well-known Finnish scholar and nobleman Yrjö von Grönhagen, a person with extensive scientific experience and a deep interest in the region's historical heritage. His fascination with Karelia was rooted in his study of Kalevala, the Finnish national epic, which was viewed as a repository of ancient wisdom and a testament to a rich folkloric heritage. In his youth, von Grönhagen showed great interest in the legends of ancient Scandinavia, as well as in the potentially lost Aryan culture, about which legends circulated and were preserved in oral traditions. Born in St. Petersburg to a family of an officer of the Russian Imperial Army, he experienced revolutionary changes that overthrew the old order, and in 1917, along with his family, he fled to Finland, settling in the small town of Viipuri. After completing his studies at the University of Helsinki, he continued his education in France at the prestigious Sorbonne, which broadened his scholarly horizons. However, the most significant turning point in his life occurred during a special journey from Paris to Helsinki, which proved to be a fateful event. During this trip, he engaged in practical sociology, recording in a diary the greetings and reactions of the people he encountered, revealing specific aspects of his personality and scientific interest. The journey led him further to Germany, where his articles about the Finnish Kalevala, a traditional musical and poetic genre, attracted the attention of influential Nazi circles, primarily Hitler and Himmler themselves. The idea of Kalevala, based on ancient oral stories and myths, begins with the legend of the creation of the world, as told in Finnish tradition, and then develops into a series of interconnected tales featuring numerous characters and motifs. Many of the heroes in these stories closely resemble characters found in Scandinavian mythology, indirectly indicating ancient cultural connections in the region. Yrjö von Grönhagen, a renowned Finnish poet and historian, created an extensive work in which he examined in detail the possibilities of using Kalevala's culture and myths to uncover the rich and noble past. In his view, these legends and traditions are closely linked to broader Aryan myths, which also find reflection and support in Nazi ideology. The Grönhagen Foundation asserted that the Finnish people, through the sagas and stories associated with Kalevala, inherited the legacy of ancient Proto-Aryans, considered the ancestors of all Aryan nations. This concept particularly appealed to the leaders of the Nazi regime, for whom ancient history and mythology served as powerful tools to justify their racial theories and nationalist policies. An epic filled with motifs of magic, heroic deeds, and mystical connections with nature formed a rich cultural foundation that reinforced the idea of the Finns' connection to the Aryan race and, more broadly, to other Scandinavian peoples. After publishing his scholarly and conceptual studies, von Grönhagen drew special attention from Himmler. In a specially arranged conversation, Himmler expressed a desire to explore the epic and its role in strengthening Nazi ideas more deeply. Göring, deeply immersed in mythological studies, sought confirmation of the superiority of the Aryan race, and Grönhagen's ideas appeared to be quite promising to him. Inspired and intrigued, he initiated the organization of a Karelian expedition with the goal of systematically documenting pagan rituals, folklore, and ancient cultural monuments that could prove racial purity and national dominance, which were the foundations of Nazi ideology. This mysterious and ancient land, seemingly frozen in the pages of a forgotten saga, was shrouded in numerous legends of powerful witches and sorcerers capable of summoning dark magic. In June of 1933, a special journey began in this region, an expedition led by Grunhagen, aiming to uncover mysterious secrets and find traces of ancient customs. Several prominent members joined this venture: Fritz Bayes, a renowned Nazi musicologist, and Finnish illustrator and researcher Olaf Arsel. In the early days of the expedition, an important event took place. They were introduced to a local singer, Borde Taimali Pitsa, a man deeply connected to ancient Karelian culture. His mastery of playing the kantele, an ancient stringed instrument known for its special magical power, left a strong impression on Göring and the other participants. Interestingly, Taimali Pitsa knew a song that seemed familiar and distinctive, reminiscent of a melody from an old book about Kalevala, though he had never touched or read the work himself. This incident further reinforced Göring's conviction that Finns and Germans in ancient times were a single people, descended from great Aryans, those whom ancient legends called rulers of the world. Taimali Pitsa lived in solitude, surrounded by the green forests of Karelia. His way of life appeared to be a harmonious reflection of nature. He resided in a house that could be considered a living museum of ancient Karelian culture, filled with artifacts and tools preserving the region's pagan heritage. Among these, the kantele held a special place, a musical instrument of very ancient origin that played a significant role in traditional culture. Locals claimed that its sounds mimicked natural harmonies of the forest, rustling leaves, the play of wind in the treetops, and the gentle flow of rivers. The importance of this instrument for the expedition was undeniable. Armed with modern German sound and video recording equipment, the team meticulously documented every performance by Taimali Pitsa to preserve his music for further study. Göring, who believed in the ancient Roman-German connection, even commissioned local craftsmen to produce several kanteles for more detailed examination. In his office, a photograph of Taimali Pitsa was later displayed, a monument to a unique cultural phenomenon. It is also known that after some time, the team filmed and recorded a performance by another Finnish singer and drummer named Hannes Warnanen. Their goal was to faithfully convey the spirit of Karelian musical tradition, and as a result, several of his songs were recorded, with particular focus on virtuosic playing on the kantele. However, perhaps the most mysterious and mystical moment of the entire expedition was not Bart, although he also attracted attention, but the unusual Finnish witch language speaker named Myron Aku. Local residents told stories that this woman possessed powerful dark forces, could summon spirits, and communicate with ancient entities. She chose her modest dwelling, surrounded by abundant wild nature, in a remote village where a deep connection with bygone times was felt at a soul level. When the team led by Uriel von Grunhagen arrived, they found Myron Aku gathering mushrooms near her hut. According to legends, she was not only an experienced herbalist and healer but also endowed with extraordinary ability to communicate with the spirit world, a unique gift passed down through generations, making her a link between modern inhabitants and their ancestors. Meeting this enigmatic woman left a profound impression on the expedition members. She greeted them with a terrifying revelation, predicting their arrival 3 days before it happened. This prophecy created an atmosphere of mysticism and a sense of inevitability, reinforcing Myron Aku's reputation as a true mistress of spiritual forces. She claimed to have known about their arrival long before it happened and that they had come for her magical abilities, further heightening the participants' perception of the place's extraordinary and even mystical presence. Grunhagen was truly captivated by this woman and believed that before him stood one of those legendary witches from the pagan era, hidden deep within the mysterious forests of Karelia and preserved through time. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, his team convinced her to participate in a special ritual, which was to be recorded with a camera and tape recorder. The purpose of this act was to invoke ancestral spirits, seek their blessing, and receive a prophecy of the future. Myron Aku agreed to perform this unprecedented ritual, and the tension in the air reached its peak. Thick smoke from burning healing herbs filled the atmosphere, while the mesmerizing sounds of her chants enveloped the space, creating a hypnotic and entrancing effect. Every moment of this night ritual was carefully documented and captured by the team, who was completely absorbed by the extraordinary power of what was happening, observing with eager attention. The recording of this mysterious rite turned out to be not just a document but a key to unraveling the enigmatic phenomenon. When Myron Aku listened to the recordings, she was deeply shaken. The wow effect of discovering that her sacred chants and rituals were not just ancient melodies but had been captured on tape using extraordinary technological means beyond her understanding stunned her. She felt a troubling premonition that her prophecy about how outsiders might steal her spiritual power was beginning to come true. This perception awakened in her a sense that her and her community's energy and spiritual strength, so precious and sacred, could be easily lost. By the end of the summer season, when the Grünhagen expedition had completed its work, over 100 records had been collected. They included various folk songs, legends, magical rituals, and recorded words of shamans. These materials were not only a reflection of a disappearing culture but also represented an important part of a broader mystery hidden in the ancient secrets of the region. For Himmler, these findings were not merely artistic evidence of the past but valuable keys opening the door to uncovering the secrets of ancient civilizations and spiritual practices of Karelia. In the German capital, among party and military circles, a special excitement and anticipation prevailed regarding these discoveries. It was confidently believed that the wisdom and knowledge sanctified by centuries of folktales could become a powerful tool for advancing the ideologies of the Third Reich and strengthening its goals. At the same time, among myths and legends, a special place was occupied by the Spear of Destiny, an incredible relic that for centuries captured the minds and hearts of people, permeating their spiritual beliefs and mystical notions. This spear, also known as Longinus's spear, was the subject of numerous legends and legendary stories that stirred the imagination of both rulers and common folk. Many hypotheses exist about its magical power and its use as a potent artifact for Nazi ideology and military might. The mystery of the Holy Lance is shrouded in a veil of mysticism and unknowns, and its history is filled with riddles and beliefs that increasingly intrigue researchers and historians. The Gospels of the New Testament recount the life of Jesus Christ and his crucifixion. However, only in the Gospel of John is there a mention of a Roman soldier who pierced the Savior with a spear, a god with the spear. At that moment, when the soldier pierced his side, blood flowed from the wound, and simultaneously water poured out, which for believers in the supernatural properties of this relic became evidence of its mystical connection to Jesus Christ. Moreover, in the account given in the Gospel of John, it is stated that this soldier was the one who received a special oath and, upon touching the Holy Spear, underwent a transformation. The name of this soldier remains unknown in the original text, however, later sources, such as the Gospel of Nicodemus, dating from the 3rd century, provide more details about his fate and significance. In it, he is called Longinus, and it is claimed that this man suffered from poor eyesight but was miraculously healed after splashing blood and water from Jesus's wound onto his eyes. Recognizing the true nature of Christ, Longinus converted to Christianity and became one of his evangelists. It is believed that he was the centurion mentioned in the 3 well-known Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, who blessed Jesus with the words, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Over time, thanks to his faith and testimonies, Longinus was recognized as a saint, and his spear was preserved as a holy relic with possible supernatural powers capable of influencing the destinies of people and events. For many centuries, the Holy Spear became not just an ancient relic kept locked away within ancient walls, but also a symbol of divine authority, power, and conquest. Legends say that whoever possesses this spear is capable of winning any battle and becoming the arbiter of the world's fate, as if guided by higher forces. At the same time, there is a tradition that if someone shows disrespect or carelessness in handling this sacred relic, it will surely bring them death and misfortune. This belief played a significant role in the destinies of many notable historical figures, among whom Charlemagne holds a special place. In the year 800 AD, he was crowned emperor after long and successful campaigns, during which, as stories go, he used the mysterious Holy Spear of Destiny. Over the following 25 years, Charlemagne suffered no defeats. His victories expanded the borders of his empire, and in every battle, he was accompanied by this weapon of fate, held confidently in his hands as if directly connected to divine will. According to legends, once, in January of the same year that he crossed the mysterious stream, Charlemagne accidentally dropped the spear, and just a few days later, he was struck by a mysterious death. Many believed that his demise was the result of careless handling of the sacred relic, for the power of this spear was, according to tradition, too great. Throughout the Middle Ages, the spear passed from the hands of the most powerful and ambitious rulers of Europe, who were willing to make any sacrifice to possess it, to preserve or strengthen their authority. In the 10th century, King Henry the Fowler, ruler of the Frankish realm, in the process of recovering the lost relic, exchanged one of his most strategically important regions, the city of Basel in present-day Switzerland, for Rudolf II of Burgundy, his kin in status. Henry used this new territory to expand his holdings significantly, subjugating Lorraine and lands in the north, as well as Slavic and Moravian territories in the east. He is considered the founder of the German state, which eventually became the Holy Roman Empire. Henry the Fowler, who initiated a long and complex line of emperors. The country continued to preserve and use the Spear of Destiny as a symbol of its authority over an increasingly vast and strengthening nation, a symbol affirming divine origin and the supreme legitimacy of its rulers. The descendants of Henry, in particular his great-grandson Emperor Otto II, decided to merge the sacred spear with another holy artifact, the Holy Nail, which, according to legend, was driven into Christ's body during the crucifixion. This union of sacred relics strengthened the perceived divine origin of the rulers of the Holy Roman Empire, endowing their reign with a special sanctity and authority. In the mid-10th century, Emperor Charles XIV adorned the handle of the Spear of Destiny with new ornamentation, marking a significant event in his reign and reinforcing his connection to divine powers. In the 14th year, after years of struggle and rise, the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund decided to transfer the Spear of Destiny and other sacred relics to the city of Nuremberg, decreeing that they should be kept there forever. However, history showed that this decision was fragile, and over the years, fate had other plans. By 1912, the spear was still housed in Habsburg Palace, attracting the attention of many, including a young artist. This individual was deeply moved by scenes from Richard Wagner's opera Parsifal, in which the spear plays a key role in mythological stories. Inspired or possibly obsessed with this imagery, he vowed one day to acquire this sacred artifact. That artist was destined to become none other than Adolf Hitler, whose fate was closely linked with the legacy and mythology of the Spear of Destiny. In 1938, as a result of the annexation of Austria into the Third Reich, this symbol of power was moved from Habsburg Palace to its new home, Nuremberg, a city with a special place in German history, possessing an evocative significance for the Nazi Party. Hitler, seeking to unite all German-speaking peoples under his rule, aimed to strengthen and expand his empire through all means available, and the transfer of the sacred spear was regarded as an important ritual symbolizing divine support for his reign. Nuremberg, long known as a key city in European history, became not just a center of political power and a symbol of military strength for Nazi Germany. It also turned into a venue for grand ceremonies, the most vivid displays of nationalist spirit, and a unique repository of mysterious relics steeped in legends and mysticism. It was here, in this city, that the famous Spear of Destiny was moved, an ancient weapon surrounded by numerous myths and mysteries. Hitler, striving to connect with the powerful imperial traditions, saw in it not merely a valuable artifact but a symbol of divine right and legitimacy for his rule. By relocating the spear to Nuremberg, he sought to breathe new life into the images of mighty empires linked to the history of the Holy Roman Empire and centuries-old dreams of greatness. Part 52 of 63. The spear had become an integral part of Nazi ceremonies and demonstrations, serving as a symbol of invincibility and divine legitimacy, confirmed not only by political authority but also by mystical associations. It was regarded as a crucial talisman that ensured Germany's lawful dominance and bestowed a special divine power upon its leadership. In the following years, numerous rumors and legends arose suggesting that Hitler and his close associates attributed almost magical properties to this relic. Some believe that the German leadership's interest in the spear was not based on its historical value but rather on its mystical significance and sacred functions. These explanations often highlighted the figure of Heinrich Himmler, a man deeply fascinated by esotericism, occult teachings, and Nazi ideology. This high-ranking official believed that the Spear of Destiny possessed supernatural power and could alter the course of history if used correctly. Himmler was especially interested in reviving imperial strength through magical rituals and related practices involving this mysterious artifact. He considered himself a reincarnation of the medieval magnate Heinrich Tyslov and conducted numerous, little-studied rituals connected with the SS order involving the spear. Despite possessing this legendary weapon, Nazi leaders never resorted to its use in combat as, for example, Charlemagne or other medieval monarchs had done, who had wielded such swords as symbols of authority. This is supported by historical accounts and legends surrounding the topic. Some researchers believe that Hitler, despite his Catholic upbringing and spiritual background, was essentially very cynical about religion, often skeptically evaluating its role and not sharing Christian ideas, which he saw as incompatible with the concept of the Aryan state and its ideal worldview. During World War II, the Spear of Destiny was stored in a specially equipped, well-protected bunker beneath the city of Nuremberg. It was guarded and protected from possible Allied bombings to preserve its integrity and safety. However, as the war situation worsened for Germany and Allied forces advanced toward the city, the atmosphere within the Nazi leadership grew increasingly tense. In panic and anxiety, many decisions were made under the pressure of events, and hope for the salvation of the ancient artifact became more and more uncertain. When, on April 30, 1945, Allied troops entered Berlin, they discovered that the Spear of Destiny, traditionally considered one of the key symbols of power and divine blessing, had been abandoned by the Nazis. It was left unguarded, and its fate was now in the hands of the victors. This fact became the final proof that the relic had passed from the hands of those who attributed mystical power to it into the hands of those who saw only a historical artifact or a strategic trophy. On the same day, April 30, Adolf Hitler committed suicide, which added even more drama to the situation. Could coincidence or fate have led the Allies to find this very spear at the last moment? Perhaps the course of destiny was such. According to legends, the bearer of this magical weapon could control the world, guiding the course of history. However, the loss of the relic also meant the disappearance of its supposed divine power, which, according to belief, protected Hitler's regime and legitimated it. When the Spear of Destiny was taken out of Nazi control, the perceived celestial protection also vanished, which, according to legend, guarded Hitler's authority. Germany's restless and sudden surrender, as well as the complete collapse of the Third Reich, only heightened the drama of this story, turning it into a legend. Still, like many myths, these legendary tales contain a kernel of truth peculiar to them. The truth is that during World War II, the Spear of Destiny was hidden in a specially fortified bunker in Nuremberg. When Allied forces ultimately captured the city, they found the secret cache, but, to their surprise, the relic itself was not there. This led to a new wave of mystery. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS and a fervent supporter of occult teachings, ordered the valuable weapon to be moved to a more secure and discreet location, believing that with the Spear of Destiny he could revive the fallen regime and turn the tide of the war. His faith in the artifact's magical power was so strong that he believed that even after defeats and heavy losses, this miraculous weapon could be the key to the rebirth of the Third Reich. Over the course of several months after the city's capture and continued fierce struggle against the enemy, the secret of the spear's whereabouts gradually unraveled. Those who hid the relic either failed or refused to resist, and ultimately had to reveal its coordinates. Deep within the massive walls of the bunker, 15 meters underground, was carefully concealed a unique and valuable treasure, the spear, whose history is shrouded in numerous legends and mysteries. In January 1946, this ancient weapon was recovered from its hiding place and returned to the magnificent Hofburg Palace in Vienna, where it remains guarded by centuries of secrets and conjectures. Despite being kept safe, many questions about this relic remain unanswered. For example, it is still unclear whether this spear is truly the artifact it is believed to be, whether it was involved in the fate of Christ or if it is simply a relic of its era. The question of the authenticity of this historical object is no longer novel, it has long become part of its rich and complex history. In 1775, the Pope handed over the spear to Charlemagne. It was described as the Holy Spear of Saint Maurice, a Roman warrior who, having become a martyr centuries after Christ's crucifixion, received a legendary fate. Nevertheless, Charlemagne himself and his followers sincerely believed that this was the Spear of Destiny, the very object that determined the fate of the empire. In the 21st century, in 2003, this version was critically re-evaluated. English metallurgist Robert Facer conducted detailed investigations to determine the age and characteristics of this weapon. His work included, among other things, the careful removal of the gold band that secured the spear, which helped experts conclude that the blade was created in the 6th century, roughly the same period when it was supposedly handed to Charlemagne, rather than during the time of the crucifixion, as legends suggest. Subsequent scientific studies by the Interdisciplinary Institute of Archaeology in Vienna confirmed that the spear's date of manufacture approaches the 7th century. This indicated that it was most likely not the same weapon that pierced Christ on Golgotha. The legend of the Spear of Destiny continues to envelop it in mystery and mysticism. Several copies of this weapon can be found throughout Europe, each seemingly linked to divine stories and cults that existed in places such as Constantinople, Paris, Eknitsan, Antioch, and even beneath the sacred vaults of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The Vatican relic, supposedly discovered in Jerusalem, is considered one of the most convincing pieces of evidence that it may indeed be the true Spear of Longinus. However, the earliest mention of it dates only to the 6th century, significantly later than the time of the crucifixion, which raises numerous questions. The very name of this spear derives from the Greek word lanxa, meaning lance, and this tautology indicates that the term lance of the lancer is perhaps a coincidence or a linguistic tradition. Debates and disagreements about its origin and purpose intensify when studying the armament of the Roman army of Christ's era. It is more likely that the weapon was a pilum, a type of javelin used in combat, rather than the long, heavy spear often associated with legends and myths. This cultural and historical conundrum raises an intriguing question: were these relics, the Spear of Destiny and similar objects, a carefully crafted myth designed to bolster faith and authority? Or were they used as symbols capable of inspiring and attracting believers through their mystical properties? A vivid example is the spear from Antioch, which first appeared in historical chronicles during the First Crusade. This mysterious artifact was found under unusual circumstances and became a symbol of faith and struggle for the Crusaders. It played an important role in their military successes, helping to secure victories even in the most hopeless situations, despite contemporary skeptics questioning its authenticity. The most remarkable discovery took place in the Russian Federation, in the Kabardino-Balkar Republic, a harsh and difficult-to-access region of the North Caucasus, surrounded by high mountains and wild nature. In 2011, atop Mount Karahoora, a Russian caver and speleologist named Artur Zimakov found an extraordinary shaft that radically changed our understanding of ancient human history. This find opened new horizons and raised complex questions among scientists about the beliefs and stories passed down through the centuries, bearing witness to mysterious and sometimes incredible eras of the past. This deep and extraordinarily narrow vertical shaft, as if sunk directly into the Earth's most secret depths, appeared to be created according to a strict, perfectly designed geometric concept. The walls of this vertical passage, constructed from stone slabs laid nearly parallel to each other, gave the impression that they were not built by human hands, but with the help of some artificial mechanism. They seemed precisely crafted, as if from a single mold, with impeccable accuracy and smoothness, which undoubtedly lent the structure a mysterious, enigmatic appearance. Zimakov and his team decided to continue exploring this unique object, and what they discovered inside was an astonishing surprise and a truly remarkable discovery. All the walls of the shaft were not only perfectly straight but also carefully polished, extending 40 meters within the mountain rock, creating the illusion that this structure had arisen spontaneously, as if driven by an intangible will of art. Inside, there was a spacious and imposing hall, reaching a height of 36 meters. The walls of this cavernous space consisted of massive megalithic blocks fitted together with astonishing precision, forming an angle very close to a right angle, with minimal gaps between them. Large stones resembling columns or massive supports were also found on the surface, adding to the structure's even more impressive and mysterious appearance. The total length of this underground complex, including upper and lower platforms, exceeded 100 meters. Artur Zimakov and his colleagues were stunned by the scale and craftsmanship they observed. Throughout all their observations, there was an undeniable sense that this majestic monument was built by humans, despite its prehistoric mystique. They noticed that the polished, smooth, narrow walls stretching deep into the mountain rock had an impenetrable appearance for an ordinary person, and the structure extended 40 meters inward into the mountain. During the investigation, Zimakov noticed that these polished and carefully processed walls, constructed from massive blocks, surprisingly resembled structures found in ancient Egyptian mines and pyramids. In particular, he recalled the famous gallery inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu, where the blocks are roughly of the same size, and the technological features link these structures. As with Egyptian monuments, complex technological functions might have been performed here, and most likely, this part was part of a much larger and more intricate complex. To reach the very bottom of this mysterious structure, the expedition members had to overcome more than an hour of crawling, which required a high level of professional training, endurance, and climbing skills. Among the hypothesized possibilities remains the chance that additional chambers or communication tunnels are located underground, extending even deeper, but they cannot be discovered at this time. Due to the enormous size of the entire underground system, scientists were only able to explore a small section about 100 meters deep. Moving inward was extremely difficult, narrow passages prevented further progress. Ultimately, the team reached a clear conclusion: despite its unusual appearance, the structure was definitely man-made, as no such formations are found in natural caves around the world, especially those with perfectly polished, straight, and smooth stone walls fitted with unmatched precision. Unlike most natural formations, this mine shows no diagonal cracks typical for tuff and other natural stones. The question arises, how was such a large-scale technological assembly achieved? How did they manage to gather and install massive blocks weighing 200 tons while ensuring such precise joins inside a narrow, underground tunnel? What secret knowledge or technical means could have enabled such an extraordinary feat? Vadim Chernobrov, head of the organization Kosmopoisk, which studies various anomalies and mysteries in Russia, decided to organize additional expeditions into this mine. Together with Artur Jimakov, he descended to thoroughly document and record what they saw on video for a documentary film. Later, this footage was broadcast on Russian television, drawing attention to the incredible sight. Chernobrov also created a detailed map of the discovered areas, carefully measured the geometry and dimensions of the entire structure, which helped better understand its scale. The images taken during the expedition clearly show that this underground cave and its construction significantly surpass in characteristics everything known about similar objects worldwide. On the virtual landscape of Vladimir Gushka's universe, one can find an image of a three-dimensional model of a mysterious mine, which astonishingly corresponds with a Soviet space rocket. It gives the impression, as if before us stands not a natural formation, but an artificial structure created by humans. This mine appears to be so smoothly and neatly constructed that it's hard to believe it is of natural origin. No one has yet precisely determined how deep it extends into the ground or what secrets and mysteries it hides beneath the earth layers. If we assume that this structure was created by humans for some reason, then the natural question arises, what was it actually intended for? Many different theories and assumptions have been proposed regarding such objects, often discussed within scientific or even esoteric circles. For instance, young researcher Vadim Chernobrov, who has dedicated much time to studying this enigmatic structure, expressed the opinion that this formation probably was not meant for active use by people inside it. He points out narrow passages, so small that an adult would find it difficult to pass through, and even a child would be unable to squeeze in without assistance. He also notes numerous tiny holes that look more like microscopic slits, barely capable of fitting a hand. Each of these miniature openings extends inward, where flashlight light quickly vanishes, plunging the explorer into complete darkness. These details suggest to Vadim a possible technological function for this structure, as everything about them seems very strange and unusual for natural formations. He recalled that similar mysterious cavities inside Egyptian pyramids, which he studied multiple times, also, in his opinion, did not serve for the movement of living beings. Instead, they had purely technical or energy-related functions, reminiscent of the mine's purpose. In Egypt, there exists a complex network of underground tunnels leading into chambers whose purpose remains unknown. No one understands exactly why they were created, whether for storage, rituals, or as part of some technological complex. The evident signs, lack of stairs, steps, or other means for safe passage, support the idea that these systems are not meant for movement inside. The walls of such underground paths are devoid of torch marks, indicating that there was no lighting inside, and perhaps, no intention of leaving any traces of human activity. Inside these corridors of unknown purpose, there are no hieroglyphs, artifacts, or other objects or traces that could indicate human presence, their cultural or religious practices. Most likely, these structures served a strictly practical function, though what exactly remains a mystery. Vadim Chernobrov hypothesized that these systems could have been connected to some complex plant, perhaps a function that in ancient times resembled a factory or operated as a resonator. He suggested the possibility that it was a device for conducting seismological research or even an ancient energy generator, something capable of converting Earth's potential resources. Other scientists and researchers speculated that these underground systems might have been part of a long-lost pyramid, which once stood atop a mountain now destroyed and vanished through the centuries. Some climbers who visited the vicinity of this mysterious object believed that this space could have served as a ventilation system, as they repeatedly observed a constant airflow moving from the ground upward, as if rising from deep within the earth. Despite the variety of theories, all who studied this structure or its remnants agreed that, whatever its purpose, it was built solely through artificial means. Its builders clearly possessed advanced technologies or new secrets that we cannot comprehend today. If such complexes were part of an advanced underground facility created long before the appearance of known human civilizations, it raises even more questions for scientists and researchers. How could it happen that no one ever mentioned such a thing in the history of the region? How could these objects have disappeared without a trace, remaining a secret for all subsequent generations? It is known that people were aware of this underground structure long before its accidental discovery by Arthur Jimakov. In fact, Jimakov's researcher uncovered it not by chance but thanks to years of effort studying ancient documents, traces, and legends. The entire history of this previously discovered site is intertwined with mysteries that arose during the Second World War, when Nazi scientists left behind many unresolved secrets and enigmas that still provoke debate and speculation. Like many other high-ranking members of the Nazi leadership, Adolf Hitler was under significant and constant influence of occultism and mystical teachings. His views and beliefs could not remain detached from these esoteric ideas, which were closely intertwined with alternative history and various theories about the origins of ancient civilizations. This movement is largely associated with the Society of Tula, a secret and little-known esoteric group that aimed to study and revive ancient Aryan traditions, allegedly lost in the depths of time. Figures such as Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, showed a particular fascination with these ideas. He founded a separate research and occult organization called the Ahnenerbe. This institute was dedicated to the study of ancestral heritage as well as the application of occult practices related to the Aryan race, with the aim of strengthening National Socialist ideology. Against the backdrop of these investigations, numerous expeditions were organized to the most remote corners of the world, including Tibet. There, they sought the mythical underground city of Shambhala, a mystical land believed to possess mysterious power and ancient knowledge. It was thought that the secrets of ancient technologies and formidable strength were hidden in its depths, which could help the Nazis achieve their ambitions. Moreover, researchers looked for evidence that the Aryan race had a connection to this enigmatic region, as such findings could serve to support their racial theories and historical narrative. In the hope of proving their theory of Aryan supremacy and justifying their ideological doctrine, the Nazis organized special expeditions to Tibet in 1938 and 1939 under the leadership of SS officer Ernst Schaefer. Although these missions officially aimed to study the region's anthropological and botanical aspects, their true purpose was to investigate myths associated with Shambhala and search for archaeological artifacts that could confirm the existence of ancient knowledge. Specifically, they hoped to find remains or evidence of highly developed civilizations hidden deep within mountain landscapes. These events took place during World War II, and in the summer of 1942, German forces launched a large-scale military operation called Edelweiss. Its goal was to seize the oil fields of the Caucasus, especially the oil-rich region around Baku in Azerbaijan. This was a strategic move critical to securing fuel supplies for German troops and machinery. Within the context of a combined strategy to deprive the Soviet Union of resources and strengthen their position in the region, this operation became one of the most important and risky military endeavors. However, in addition to military and economic considerations, Nazi occult organizations and representatives of the Ahnenerbe considered the Caucasus to be especially significant from their ideological and mystical beliefs. They believed that this region contained vital evidence of the origins of the Aryan race, as they thought powerful ancient Aryan civilizations once thrived there. According to their version, these civilizations left behind not only ruins but also underground cities and hidden structures filled with knowledge surpassing contemporary science. One of the sites that drew particular interest among German researchers was the city of Karakorum, an assumed underground structure located somewhere atop a mountain range. At the entrance to the mine, an unusual inscription was discovered, a swastika carved into the rock by the Nazis. There is a possibility that this symbol served not only as a marker or a symbolic sign but also as a sort of pointer, evidence that researchers were getting closer to solving each of the ancient secrets. An important mystery remains the fact that in the same region, scientists discovered an even older carving featuring a swastika, which clearly belonged to a more advanced civilization that existed long before the Nazi era. The question of the origin and meaning of this symbol becomes even more intriguing. Who left it? An ancient civilization perhaps connected to the secret history of the land, or did it originate from the Nazis themselves, inspired by this legend? The image of the swastika, first appearing in Aryan traditions and later used by the Nazis as a symbol of their ideas, takes on an even deeper significance in this mysterious story. Could the appearance of this symbol be evidence that ancient civilizations left their traces deep within the mountains, leaving behind secrets that are still sought after today? Who were the creators of the Harahora mine, and how are they connected to racial and mystical theories that inspired the Nazis' ideology? Questions remain unanswered, constituting a mystery that continues to fascinate historians and seekers of ancient secrets. Arthur Zimakov is a well-known specialist in speleology, a person whose interest in the enigmas of occultism, ancient manuscripts, and legends of the North Caucasus has never waned over a long period. He dedicated considerable effort to finding answers that, in his conviction, are hidden deep within the mountain rocks of this region. During his research, Arthur learned that in the Caucasus, countless stories passed from generation to generation about giant underground cities and mysterious caves, many of which still remain hidden from the human eye. He was firmly convinced that the discovery of the Hara Hora mine, which he managed to achieve, was only the first step toward uncovering the secrets of ancient civilizations buried underground. In his view, this mountain conceals countless other astonishing structures, underground urban complexes waiting to be explored. However, sadly, fate had other plans. Just short before planned new expeditions that could shed light on these mysterious forms of antiquity, a tragedy occurred that halted Arthur's research. In 2015, at the most inopportune moment, he was run over by a car, an event that resulted in his tragic death. On the same day, he was about to share his most important discovery, which he had spoken of all this time, but fate decreed otherwise. This was only the beginning of a chain of mysterious misfortunes. Viktor Chernobrov, founder and leader of the organization Kosmopoisk, a man with whom Arthur Zimakov had jointly participated in an expedition to the Hara Hora mine, also found himself drawn into this enigmatic cycle of events. Soon after the catastrophe, he passed away just 2 years later due to an illness that many believed could be linked to some supernatural influence. But that is not all. During this period, 3 other individuals involved in the research also died, and the circumstances of their deaths remain shrouded in mystery. Their deaths raise numerous questions, and the developments suggest that there is something more enigmatic about them than just a series of coincidences. To this day, information about the Kara Hara mine and other expeditions to this region is extremely limited and kept from the general public. The only items we managed to find are 2 old albums, dated to the 17th and 18th years, belonging to Alexander Splishnov. This man traveled to the specified region and became one of the few to penetrate inside the Kara Hara mine itself. His photographs are remarkable for their clarity and detail. They show smooth, impeccably even walls, as well as massive megalithic blocks arranged with astonishing precision and craftsmanship. But his work does not stop there. Splishnov also captured numerous artifacts found at the entrance to the mine, objects that evoke special interest. Among them is an image of a mysterious swastika left by the German Nazis, who conducted research in these areas. One of the shots clearly shows an unusual stone with noticeable traces of mechanical processing, indicating its artificial origin. In the next series of photos, a mysterious stone formation is depicted, almost entirely buried in the ground and covered with vegetation. These details evoke the feeling that they are part of a long-forgotten man-made structure, a remnant of an ancient civilization. The stone possesses perfectly flat surfaces, and it seems that its sides were deliberately worked by humans. Around these objects, massive stone blocks are neatly stacked, and the hidden part of the structure remains invisible to outsiders. All the photographs reveal straight cuts on the stones, right-angled corners, and perfectly smooth walls, characteristic signs of artificial assembly. Attention is drawn to the unusual shapes of certain stones, and it occasionally appears that these are not natural formations, but part of an ancient megalithic complex created by human hands. It can be assumed that the entire territory of Kara Hara is strewn with stone blocks that seem to have been deliberately processed, perhaps by some ancient mechanism or machine belonging to a long-forgotten civilization. It is no coincidence that trace marks are clearly visible on the rocks, presumably left during the extraction of these building materials, traces that indicate production processes carried out many miles ago. All this mysterious and enigmatic atmosphere evokes an almost imperceptible feeling that deep within and around the mountain lie ancient secrets, traces of long-extinct cultures and civilizations that once built these megalithic structures and left enigmatic marks of their existence. In this photograph, it is clearly visible how carefully and precisely the stone blocks were connected. There are almost no gaps between them, creating impressive, nearly flawless lines and shapes. Such a level of accuracy and harmony in the joints is rare in natural formations. It more closely resembles the work of ancient craftsmen who possessed knowledge and techniques that have long been lost or faded over time. Alexander Splishnov captured the entire path starting from the entrance to the Hara Hora mine leading to its deepest and most mysterious sections. His photos are characterized by high resolution and exceptional quality, making them valuable materials for future research and comparative analysis. All these impressive images can be found in the albums published on his social media page on vContact. If the subject of the investigated object interests you, we will gladly provide links to these albums in the description below so you can review the details personally. The discovery of the Hara Kora mine in the North Caucasus was made in 2011 by archaeologist Artur Zimakov. This discovery sparked enormous public interest in ancient human history and the technologies that, according to evidence, were lost and forgotten deep in the ages. The site continues to raise a storm of questions and stimulate reflections among experts and enthusiasts, pondering possible knowledge and capabilities of ancient civilizations that built such a mysterious structure. There is a variety of opinions in society. Some claim this is a vivid testimony to the existence of a highly developed ancient culture possessing technologies and knowledge unavailable to later eras, while others tend to believe such formations are simply natural structures that formed by chance and are not related to human activity. Unfortunately, many researchers deeply interested in this unique object have passed away, and in recent years, little new data or publications about it have appeared. The mystery of the origin and purpose of this unusual mine remains an unresolved puzzle, continuing to excite the minds of those seeking answers. If someday it is proven that it was created by ancient civilizations with advanced technological culture, it would be a real breakthrough in archaeology, history, and understanding of humanity's future. In scale, uniqueness, and complexity, the Hara Kora structure could take its rightful place among the most famous megalithic monuments of our planet, comparable to Stonehenge or the Tamps in Mexico. The object leaves a lasting impression and will undoubtedly become a significant chapter in the memory of long-gone eras and the mysteries yet to be uncovered.